Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. The meeting of the Personnel Administrative Affairs Committee is being held today, Thursday, September 10th, 2020 at 7 p.m. via teleconference. As chairman of the Personnel Administrative Affairs Committee, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, in accordance with the governor's emergency order 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with emergency order, I am confirming that we are providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. We are using Zoom, and the meeting link can be found on the agenda as well as on the city's website. You can also join by telephone by dialing 1-929-205-6099, meeting ID 873-9259-7426, and passcode 829831. The public may also view this meeting on Comcast Channel 16. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing the meeting through public postings. Instructions have also been provided on the City of Nashua's website at www.nashua.nh.gov and publicly noticed at City Hall in the Nashua Public Library. If anyone has a problem accessing the meeting via phone or channel 16, please call 603-821-2049 and they will help you connect. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting via the methods mentioned above, the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. When each member states their presence during roll call, please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. Alderman Kelly, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Clemens?
Yes, I am here. I can hear everyone, and I am at home per the governor's social distancing guidelines.
Alderman Lopez?
I can hear everybody. I can see everybody. I'm alone except for two cats which are wandering around. I'm not going to frighten them. And I'm isolating.
As the clerk, I am here and I can hear everyone. Alderman Cleaver?
I'm here, I'm alone, and I'm practicing social distancing according to state guidelines.
And Alderman Karen?
Yes, I am here. I am alone and I can hear everyone.
We have 5 members present.
Okay, can you tell me who also is in attendance? Or
Oh, sure, there's a long list. Hold on one second. Also in
Okay.
attendance is Alderman Klee, Director Kleiner, Alderman Lopez, Attorney Bolton. I'm not going to list off all of the interviewees. We have Alderman Liu, Alderman Wilshire, Mayor Donges, Director Marchand. Who am I missing? Going to page 2. Hold on. Did I miss anyone? I think that's what I got.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, at this time, we will take public comment. for anyone who would like to speak on any of the items that will be taken up this evening during our meeting. Alderman Kelly, can you see if anyone is out there that is looking to speak?
Yep, I will let you know.
Thank you.
Beth Scaer would like to speak.
Hi, yes, Beth Scaer, 111 East Hobart Street. I'm speaking to give public comment on the ordinance 020029, supplemental requirements relative to face coverings. And under the proposed ordinance, businesses would be required to enforce the wearing of masks by their customers or force those customers to leave. Business owners who do not follow the new rules could be turned in by their own customers or fellow business owners and fined by the police. My concern from the beginning with the mask ordinance has been that our Nashua small businesses already struggling under COVID restrictions would lose customers. I can't imagine how tough it would be for these businesses to send badly needed customers away, perhaps never to return. Nancy Kyle, president of the New Hampshire Retail Association, was quoted in the Union Leader as saying, "This is going on all over the country. Our national associations and retail leaders are adamant that retailers should not be policing this. In some instances, these would be 16-year-old kids who are being asked to enforce this." She stressed confrontations about mask use have already led to verbal and physical altercations throughout the nation. And John Dumais, president of the New Hampshire Grocers Association, said there's already been reports of strong language and shouting from belligerent customers towards teen grocery store workers who are asking them to wear masks into businesses. He told the union leader, quote, "They get intimidated very quickly, and that is unfortunate because they are already working extra hard to keep things sanitized in the store. We are there to serve the customer and not to enforce masks." So I'm asking you to please strike item 11 from the ordinance, which requires businesses to enforce mask wearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Alderman Kelly, is there anyone else?
Yes.
Okay.
Hello.
Yes. Could you please give your name and address?
Yes, this is Sue Newman, 25 Charlotte Avenue.
Okay, Sue, what would you like to speak about?
Okay, Chairman, I would disagree with, I respectfully listened to the previous comments, but I would support the ordinance. And I have the following the reasons why I think it's a good idea. Very recently, like in the last couple of weeks, I was in one of the larger grocery store chains in Nashua. There was a man at checkout area, not in the checkout lane I was in, about 3 lanes over. He was probably in his 40s, and there was no mask, but we were all checking out. When I went to the checkout lane I was in, I asked the cashier if there was a store policy on what you do if you don't have a mask. There was one of the managers right there, so I spoke to him. I checked out. He went over to the unmasked person, and he came and he was courteous enough to speak to me. He said he had a medical condition, and he said there's nothing they could do. That's fine. The cashiers, one of them that was in the area, quietly said to me, "Thank you. It's very difficult for us because they can't do anything. The managers can do something." And I think one of the issues I've had since the ordinance started has been the assortment of signs I have seen at front entrances. Some are a lot clearer than others. Some clearly say masks required. Others have mask ordinance in Nashua and so forth. But I think signage would be the first wave of at least getting people's attention. I read and I saw the retail people that put a letter into the editor, an open letter to you all a couple weeks ago. And I respectfully read it. I can see their point. but I think it is the manager's job to do something. Any of the places that I have gone into, and there aren't zillions of them, there's a manager there or somebody that is appointed to be taking care of things. I recognize that these people don't want to have any confrontation. I have become aware from one out-of-state employer that has a business in southern New Hampshire that they had training opportunities, or at least they were going to look at it for their personnel. Apparently it was like a conflict resolution in case there was any problem going on. The bottom line, when I spoke with this man who was up in Maine, I mean, he basically said he supports masks. One of his store employees that was in southern New Hampshire had indicated to me a couple weeks earlier that if there was a state mandate for masks, it would have made it a lot easier. But when I spoke with this head person up in Maine, he did say, do I have any suggestions? And my suggestion to him was that that particular store, people want to go in, they want to comply because they really want to go in, and that to take the opportunity to go in, I felt was motivation enough for people to mask up. On a subsequent visit there, that's exactly what was going on. Big signage, masks are required. Their personnel was walking around, making sure that things were orderly, that people did have masks, and everything got along just fine. In this day and age, we don't have a vaccine. We don't know when one is coming. We have few options, and I guess I'm just befuddled to think that some people just deliberately refuse to comply. I have had people say to me, I don't care about your ordinance. I've had other people just give me the look. And one person mentioned to me that in one of the stores, when she was in there, that the manager was getting frustrated because apparently there was a hint that the customer didn't want to be compliant and was going to refuse to be compliant and may even have a weapon. And it's like, are you kidding me? So we've got takeout, we've got online ordering, we've got pickup and delivery service, and there are people that would do shopping for people. I don't see any reason why for the duration until we get beyond where we all understand COVID a lot better, and it remains out there, we just don't have the mask ordinance, and it's in Nashua. This is what we have, and people comply, and that's it.
Okay, thank you, Sue.
Thank you.
Robin
there a-
Russo would like to speak.
I'm sorry.
Robin Russo would like to speak.
Okay, thank you. Please state your name and address, please. Hello?
Hello, I'm sorry. I had to figure out how to unmute myself. So
No,
my name
that's
is Robin Russo. I live in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. I live in Market Square, actually. And I am a former zoning board member for Portsmouth and Durham, and I'm a CPA. And I was listening to you guys before you started your meeting, and you look like a really fun team. So I'm glad. Nashua is lucky that they have nice people on their board. So I got an email and I saw this ordinance that you guys are talking about tonight. And I'm like, oh God, I mean, this sounds like Nazi Germany, right? I love to go to Nashua. I love the Lucky Dog thrift shop downtown. They do really great work for animals. And I love eating Indian food over there. And I also like to do project work for Outpost International. And so I saw this and I'm like, oh gosh, this is pretty damn serious. It sort of reminded me of sort of the Salem witch trials, right? Where there was a lot of people very fearful of what was going on, and they would blame it on sort of witchcraft. And I sort of feel like people are afraid of COVID right now. I read the numbers. I'm a CPA, right? I like numbers. And the new numbers are 9,400 people out of 330 billion people in our country actually got sick because of COVID alone. And 80% of those people were over the age of 80. Actually, the rest of the numbers were all people who had existing conditions. So there's a lot of fear out there and there's a lot of misinformation. By the way, that 9,400 is on the CDC website. You have to fish around for it a little bit, but it's there, and it's quite shocking that we would really take extreme measures for such a low number. And I think those numbers have been sort of updated. They get updated all the time, right? So I just think that, you know, we, the people of New Hampshire, we love our freedoms, and we all went to that field trip when we were in school to the Salem, Mass, right? And we learned about mass hysteria and that we need to respect the rule of law. And in this case, we need to respect real evidence that people are getting sick and to what level. And, you know, I think in my personal opinion, our actions on a state level have been extreme. That 21-day sort of emergency order is coming up real quick. I know I'm in downtown Portsmouth, I'm in Market Square, it's booming right now. And people are out and about, nobody's getting sick in Portsmouth. And I talked to the hospital, Portsmouth Regional, nobody's getting sick there either and coming in for COVID. They're quite empty, actually. So I wanted to just give my 2 cents on that. And I appreciate that you taking the time to listen to me, and you guys have a great meeting tonight.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone
Mike,
else?
Yep, there's a few more, June. We have Mike Athelberg.
Yep, thank you. Mike, would you please state your name and address?
Yeah, Mike Athelberg with the United Way of Greater Nashua. We are located at 20 Broad Street in Nashua. So, first of all, with respect to the prior caller, I'm not sure how many people she knows who have actually died of coronavirus, but I have 3 close friends who have. Maybe the perspective would be a little bit different if she had personal experience. I don't know that she hasn't, but I have, and I can tell you that that makes a very big impact on you when you have had close relations who have actually passed from this disease. As of today, the United Way of Greater Nashua has passed out in our community 89,619 face masks. We've been doing this for months now, starting in the malls, in the farmers markets, downtown, and also to the various locations that are owned and operated by nonprofits in our community. I'm not going to advocate for or against the expansion of this ordinance. I think you can probably read between the lines on where I would stand on that. But what I will tell you is the United Way's commitment is that to the extent that there is a need for face masks in our community, I can give you my personal assurance that we will make sure that every person in our community has zero excuse to say, I am not wearing a face mask because I don't have one, or I can't get one, or I don't know where to get one. We will be there to make sure that happens. We have about 80,000 face masks currently on hand, available to the public, our nonprofit sector as well. So thank you for listening today, and I appreciate you taking up this conversation.
Thank you, Mike. Kelly, anyone else?
Yes, I'd like to speak.
Okay, there was someone else in line, but go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, could you please give us your name and address, please?
Okay, if I'm going to go before Shoshanna Kelly or not?
I'm not speaking. I'm an alderman.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. All right. Yeah, my name is Marty Storer. I live at 9A Abbott Street, Nashua. So I'd like to support expanding the ordinance and comment on two comments. One comment is that regarding the caller before, the previous caller talked about the United Way, who's from Portsmouth. I mean, I've heard that before, saying, "Oh, there's only a few thousand cases in the country where COVID was the only possible condition." Well, okay, so I've got some issues, pre-diabetic perhaps, and etc. And I'm in my 60s, so if I die of COVID, I'd be in the category of I didn't die only of COVID. I died because I had these other health issues. So that's just a silly kind of trope that's been out there, and it's just false. I mean, the CDC. She mentioned the CDC. The CDC is recommending that people wear face masks, right? And we're going to see an increase, I believe, in New Hampshire as schools open, right? And you know, people, and it doesn't matter that most of the people who died in New Hampshire are over 80. You know, we should be protecting them too. Okay, so that was one thing. You know, the second thing is just that, you know, I see not that great enforcement of this ordinance. You know, the ordinance the original ordinance was enacted for very good reasons. We want to prevent the spread of COVID. And, you know, are we going to listen to somebody who's not a scientist saying that, oh, I read some numbers and, you know, this is how I interpret them. I mean, you know, with all respect, a CPA is not an epidemiologist. So I think that the science is very, very strongly in favor of face masks, and we should, you know, we should, you know, when in doubt, stop the spread of COVID. So the way to do that, we're being told, is face masks, and I don't see any, you know, conspiracy or any willful misinterpretation of actual scientific data on the part of the CDC, you know, which is, you know, to be honest, I hear a lot of that kind of stuff among friends and acquaintances and just, you know, people I don't know. And I see not enough people are wearing masks, taking this ordinance seriously. And I think we need to, you know, put some teeth into it and start enforcing it. I see, you know, grocery stores, convenience stores, out on the street, just many people not taking any care at all, not wearing a mask, no social distancing. You know, I've seen political candidates, you know, photos of them on primary day, some of them out there with no masks and next to supporters who have no masks. And, you know, the face masks are politicized now, and it should not be a matter of politics. It should be a matter of science. And that's why I support what you're trying to do by expanding this ordinance. Thank you, I'm done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I see Robert. I don't have a last name.
Yep. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
We can.
Please state your name and address.
Yep. Robert Farinelli, 92 Ledge Street.
Okay. You're up.
Okay. All right. So I'm here to voice my dissent for this ordinance. First of all, before going that, for all of you out there who want to wear face masks, go ahead, wear your face mask. It's none of my business. If you feel that's the best way to protect yourself from the virus, go ahead. But last time I checked, when I bought a box of face masks, it said right on the label, does not protect against coronavirus. And I have seen multiple more evidence on that from people using vape tests and such that show that they're when they exhale, their breath that exhale flows freely outside the mask when people are exhaling. So we want to talk about science for this decision, but based on required labels on products and actual scientific experiments, we can clearly see that these face masks that you're recommending do nothing unless you want the ordinance to recommend that everyone wear an N95 mask, which actually does something, but that's just my first point here. The second point is on the data. We've heard two numbers being thrown around today for the number of deaths. We have the CDC number, which last I checked was it like 1,000, 180,000, 190,000, somewhere in that ballpark, and then we heard 90,000. So I work as a data modeler, and you can make data show whatever you want to support your beliefs. You can model it in any way to make and visualize it in any way to support any argument you want. So I don't think it's fair that every coronavirus death here was solely the fact of coronavirus, or the people who only died of coronavirus, or the ones that only should be counted. there's a lot of things on the death certificates if you look a little closer. Personal injury, Alzheimer's, some things that might not have to do with coronavirus, and others that do. You could say, all right, yeah, that's probably from coronavirus. Some people died of other respiratory causes. So if we're going to take a number here, my number nationally I'm going to take is about 60,000 or so. If we really dig through all those death certificates and look at the causes and break them down by, okay, the person who died in a motorcycle crash who also had coronavirus is not a coronavirus death, but the person who had respiratory failure, as this is a respiratory disease, yeah, that probably is a coronavirus death. But nevertheless, if we look at the numbers here in New Hampshire, as of yesterday, we have 236 current infections, 7 hospitalizations, no ICUs, and no one in the ICUs. And if we look at the total deaths, 80% long-term care facility, and we have 433 total deaths, and over 70, that's 379. I don't want to break down that percentage, but regardless of the fact, we are going to pass this ordinance apparently, and threaten business owners who want to run their business the way they want to. You know, no one's forcing you to go to these amusement areas. No one's forcing you to go to a pizza joint. You know, if you're very scared of getting the virus and don't want any social distancing. So some previous comments have expressed major concerns about mask wearers. Well, that's really none of your business. You really don't really need to go to a lot of these places. There's only really a few places that require masks, probably grocery stores and pharmacies, maybe convenience store at a gas station, that you really need to wear a mask to go to. But nonetheless, we have a lot of people. We've also been talking about people who've been violent for not wearing masks, where I've seen quite the opposite. I've seen people be very violent against me, say very mean and cruel things against me, saying that they wish I should die of COVID, and wishing my family died of COVID, and other obscenities to me when I have publicly voiced my dissent for mask wearing. And so yeah, we want to make the. So when we talk about making it political off of data, I feel like the people who want to enforce this ordinance are the ones making it political, because they're threatening with force, whether it be citizens who are threatening with normal force, the city of Nashua who wants to threaten a $1,000 fine, and now I guess they want to threaten business owners who just want to run the businesses the way they want to. It's all threats to people from a disease that, looking at the numbers, we could call it slightly worse than the flu, but if we do real digging in the data, I'm looking right now from the New Hampshire Health Public Services data sheet, and
Robert, you have 1 minute, please, because I have a few other people that need to comment.
Okay. Yeah, whatever. Sure, you can cut me off here. Yes, I know I've taken a while, and apologies for my long rant. I just had people said more things, so I wanted to say more things, but I'll stop now. Thank you for letting me speak.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Alderman Kelly, if someone wants to speak again, as long as they're not repeating what they've already said, I have no problem with them speaking for 2 minutes.
Okay,
Thank
I
you.
see one person who I think has not spoken yet.
Okay.
Yes, is what I see. Is that, assuming there's a name connected with that.
Hello, hello. My name's
Hello.
Peter Schaefer. I live at 15 East Street in Nashua. I just want to say that I'm a person at risk, okay? And I think store owners should be concerned that I, for example, may not want to go to a store that doesn't want to, that doesn't care if their customers wear a mask or not. I also think that the people who serve customers in the store have a right to be able to have some distance and some protection that I think wouldn't be afforded if you didn't have a rule like that. One more last thing is, I was born in Germany. Okay, people should read their history. This is nothing like Nazism. Okay, this is cooperation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Peter.
And then we have two who had asked for follow-ups. I see Deirdre.
Hello, yes. This is Deirdre Haida. I'm at 28 Newcastle Drive in Nashua, and this is the first time I'm speaking. Just two points. There was a comment earlier about N95 masks. Just to clarify, the N95 mask, when it's used effectively, it is only screening out 0.3 microns at its very best. But the COVID particle, just like the influenza particle, is around 0.1 or 0.125 microns. So that particle is smaller than the smallest opening in the N95 mask. So if you think about, if we really think that all these medical masks and cloth masks are really going to help us, then me as a scientist, I study these things and looked into the data, and it doesn't seem like it doesn't appear to be, based on the statistics and based on the numbers, that even having the best mask out there, that you're still going to not get COVID. The second point is, for someone, so I live by myself, and I consider myself a strong person, as in, mentally, mentally aware and everything. But I find myself, as I go to I can only see people without masks at the park, and even at the park, I see people with masks. So I'm being affected by the fact that I'm not seeing people's faces anymore, and it's kind of weird. Maybe if you live in a big family, it's cool because you can see your family members. But I see this as something that is affecting me, and someone that I feel like I feel like I'm strong mentally, but it's having some effect on me. And I'm glad no one here in the call is wearing a mask, because that would be too much. But yeah, those are my 2 points, and I appreciate the time to speak today. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Alderman Kelly, is there anyone? Hello?
Beth Scaer had asked to follow up.
Okay, Beth, as long as you're not, Beth, as long as you're not repeating, you already said, you may speak for 2 minutes.
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up that I'm not asking for you to choose between science and helping businesses. I mean, we can do both. Protecting people's health is important, and protecting businesses is important. And when you make your decision, I want you to protect the health of both, because without our small businesses, Nashua would be a very sad place, and they're already having a hard time under the COVID restrictions. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you, Beth.
I'll make a final call for public comment. I don't see any additional hands.
This is Robin Rousseau. I'd like to speak if that's okay.
Robin, as long as you're not repeating what you just said, you have 2 minutes.
I understand.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I heard some of the comments. I have many elderly friends. I love my elderly friends, but the statistics show that many people, especially as you get older, your immune system is compromised, and you really could catch any kind of virus, or you catch the flu a little bit easier than usual if you're a little bit younger. So I don't know that that's an argument for this situation. We love our elderly people. We would not be not wearing a mask because we don't care about our elderly people or people with diabetes and other conditions. We love them. But unfortunately, the science shows that their immune system is compromised. And so I don't know that that requires everybody else to be uncomfortable. There's also, I don't know if you guys have seen the OSHA videos, but I've seen them where there's this test where you can, there's a meter and you put it next to your mouth without a mask and you measure the oxygen level and then you put it under the mask and those lights and alarms are going off. If you haven't seen those videos, they're out on band.video, YouTube, grab them off, but they're very real. So, we want kids to be healthy and not have to be sick with a mask on top of that. So, there is science, but not everybody is watching those videos, unfortunately. So we love our elderly. I want to make that point that unfortunately, as you get older, your immune system is just naturally compromised. So you're sort of open to a lot of different things, not just COVID. So that's all I wanted to add to that. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
That's every-
Alderman? Okay.
Lori Ortolano, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi,
Go ahead,
I'm
please
calling.
state your name and address.
Sure. Lori Ortolano, 41 Berkeley Street. I just wanted to speak very briefly that, I support the use of masks, but I don't feel like we need to change the ordinance to put more restrictions on business owners to do more regulation. I think our numbers and our data have been very good, and our compliance has been good. And I just don't support more regulations to solve problems that potentially don't exist. And I don't know if there's information out there now that shows, an issue. I know some of the public has asked Bobby Bagley to get information on where the cluster outbreaks were at restaurants, but the city isn't willing to disclose that. And since we really don't have, as the public, firsthand information on this, I just don't feel that there's enough cases and problems to constitute more stringent restrictions placed on the mask. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we will continue with the meeting. Alderman Kelly, is there any communications?
There are none.
Okay.
Hello?
Interview.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Hello?
Hello?
Yes. Hi, this is Sue Newman again. I wonder if I could just make one last comment.
Okay, so you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, I won't take 2 minutes. For everybody who's got a teenager or a young adult who has a job, and I'll just pick on a grocery store because they have, some of the stores have a lot of kids there. I would want my child to be in a store knowing that they are masked, that the store personnel is masked, and that the people coming into the store are masked. I don't want to see any of our young people be susceptible to the disease if they can help it, nor any of the older workers that are at the stores. So as a courtesy to our businesses, I still support the ordinance, and I wish we didn't even need an ordinance, that people would just wear the mask, but they help. And so I'm still coming down on the side of mandating or supporting the mask ordinance. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're into interviews for the Master Plan Committee. Mayor, are you here today? Hello?
He was on. Maybe he's on mute.
He's on mute.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam.
That's okay, Mayor.
So as
Thank
you
you for-
recall, as you will recall, we passed a resolution creating a steering committee for the master planning effort, which we are going to be undertaking over the next, over the coming months. And the master planning effort has been delayed a little bit by COVID-19, but now we are bringing a group of the appointments before you. The first, at least on the list here, is Marianne Malizi Golia, who I believe is on the call. She is, of course, familiar to all of you. She's served with great distinction as a member of the Board of Aldermen for 10 years or so. She's been on the school board. She was chair of the planning committee, very knowledgeable about city planning issues, and I'm sure she'll be a great addition. She is the Ward 8. She would be the Ward 8 representative on the committee.
June, if I could ask a question, please.
Certainly,
Kelly.
Alderman.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, before we go into specific interviews, I was hoping, this is a pretty important committee and I'm looking forward to talking to everyone. If you could talk about how the makeup of this committee was put together.
I looked for people who had broad community interest, who I thought could contribute to the steering committee by helping to guide the staff regarding the future of the city. I mean, the point here is we're looking 10 or 20 years out, and therefore we want people who've thought a lot about Nashua and are familiar with it, familiar with our community, and I believe that the people that have been nominated fit that bill.
Was there any specifications on how many from, are they all from different wards?
Well, you might recall that the ordinance requires one from each ward.
Yep.
Citizens, one from each ward, as well as a chair of the committee.
Thank you. I just wanted that out there for everybody as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Kelly. Okay, Mayor, would you introduce Marianne?
Yes, I see Mrs. Malizi Golia is on the camera. And so,
can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes,
you're
coming
a little
in
bit crackly.
Yeah.
The remix version.
Sorry.
Okay, Marianne, would you give us a little background and as to why you want to be on this committee?
I believe all of you have the short resume that I submitted through the mayor's office, and as many of you know,
Marianne,
yeah,
you're breaking up.
Yeah.
We can't hear you. Do you want to hang up and try again, and I'll have the mayor move on to the next one?
I will do that.
Okay, all right, thank you. Mayor, would you mind going to?
no, of course not. Thank you, Madam Chair. So the
All
next
right, thank
nominee is, you want me to go ahead?
Yes, and Marianne will try to come in on another line, so if you go to the next person, that would move us along.
All right, thank you. The next
Thank
nominee is Homa Jaffari. Homa has been a resident of Nashua for about 20 years. She grew up in the UK. She works for Oracle Corporation down in South Nashua, and she's been very involved in our community for a long time. She's been a volunteer for Great American Downtown. She was treasurer of City Arts Nashua. Was involved in events planning for them. She's been on the advisory board of Visualize Nashua and the advisory board for Positive Street Art. And she's served as a member of the city's review and comment committee. She has two kids, both of whom have gone to school here in Nashua. And I believe Homa will be as a Ward 9 representative, will be a very a member of the committee who will be able to provide a very meaningful contribution.
Thank you. Homa, are you on?
Yes, can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, we
Hi.
can. Can you give us a little background and tell us why you want to join this committee?
Well, I think Jim just basically said everything I was going to say. But yeah, I love Nashua. I moved to the States when I was 23 years old, and I didn't move straight to Nashua. I moved from London to Memphis in Tennessee, and I just never felt like, it just never felt like home. I lived there for 10 years, and I just did not like it. I didn't feel like, I was part of a community or anything. And then when we moved to Nashua, at first, like in 2000, downtown Nashua wasn't that great. There wasn't much there. But as time went by, things started changing, and I grew to love Nashua. And I feel like, this is my home. Like, I can say I'm an American and I live in Nashua, and I love, where I live. I have a home here, which I purchased 20 years ago. And, my kids went to school here, and I'm very invested in, trying to make sure that, the kids that go to school in Nashua, they grow up, that they come back after they go to college, that they can find jobs here. So I really want to do my part to help the community. And, I really enjoy volunteering. I've done quite a bit of that. And I'm really happy and grateful to be invited on this committee.
Okay, thank you. Do I have any questions from the members of the committee?
Alderman Lopez.
Okay, Alderman Lopez.
You're on mute.
Alderman Lopez?
Yep, sorry about that. I just wanted to comment to Homa. I'm glad you're willing to step forward. I worked with Homa during her long term at Positive Street Art, and also with her at Great American Downtown and City Arts Nashua and a lot of other programs that she helped support. She's always been very enthusiastic. She's always seen the best in the community, and I think she's being a little modest when she says things just started to change. A lot of it was people were looking to get involved and feel involved, and Homa was a large part of making them feel welcome. So to her credit, I think she recognizes the value of diversity and how it offers an opportunity for positive change. To Homa, I kind of want to ask, what areas are you looking at in terms of of how you will help this specifically? Are there areas that you think we need to do better at, or areas that you have a passion for? Kind of want to know where your thoughts are.
Yeah, I definitely feel like Nashua needs to work on affordable housing, because I have noticed that a lot of young people, they cannot afford getting an apartment in Nashua. It's just too expensive. And so a lot of them are leaving Nashua for places like Manchester. So I think that's really important, that we need to look out for them and try to keep our, youth here in Nashua. So that's one thing. And then, of course, I love, I think that every great city needs to have a great downtown. So I've always been invested in making sure that we, continue to, make it a place where everyone, enjoys, so that we have, like, we can take advantage of the weather we have, and, other things like that. That's, I mean, obviously I'm thinking about the whole city and, planning of how are we gonna, make sure that every ward is, like, looked out for. So I don't know. I'm looking out for the whole of Nashua, because obviously I don't even live downtown. I live in South Nashua. I mean, we're very close to the border of Kingsborough, and there's a mall here, but I wouldn't want to go shopping in the mall. I'd rather go to the stores downtown, even if they might be, less choice or anything like that. Might be a little bit more expensive, but I think it's very important to support our local businesses.
I appreciate your thoughts. I agree that having a shared common area is very welcoming to people, and I think you're a good example of somebody who found town and then was able to find other places from there. So I appreciate you stepping forward to volunteer. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Tom.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Nope.
Hi, Laurie.
Okay.
I see Laurie.
Sorry, Lori, I didn't see your hand.
That's okay. Thank you. First off, I want to say to the mayor, I hope you're feeling well. And this committee that you have, these nominations before us tonight are very impressive. I mean, I know all but maybe one of these people, and I can't tell you, I couldn't be happier with the selections you made. And Homa, thank you so much for stepping forward. I know you've been very active in the community since I've known you, and that's been a good number of years. Appreciate all you do, and I know you'll be really good for this committee. Thank you, and thank you all for stepping up. Pretty impressive. Pretty impressive group. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Wilshire. If there's no one else, Homer, we will take up your nomination at the end of the meeting, but you don't have to stay online to hear that. You will get notified as to when your swearing in will take place at the next Board of Aldermen meeting. And thank you for willing to step forward.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Okay, Shoshana, did Mary Ann come back on?
I'm looking.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so we'll go back to Mary Ann.
Okay.
Thank you. Tell us why you want to be on this committee.
Okay, well, thank you. I think we have always appreciated Nashua since we moved here in the mid-90s. And I think that the development of all of Nashua is somewhat at a critical point in terms of the amount of space we have left to develop, as well as looking forward to how we are going to develop parcels and buildings and properties in the city. And I think that we need to look at a balance between businesses, both industrial sorts of businesses, light industrial businesses, different kinds of residential use, our downtown small locally owned shops, and making sure that we have green space available across all of the city for people to come together and enjoy. And although we're master planning for the city of Nashua, I think we always need to keep in mind that of the role we play in the region, and that we are going to be interacting with our neighbors in Milford and Hudson, and housing and businesses and roads and hopefully rail will not only impact us, but have an impact on the region. So I think that having that local picture as well as looking at what we do for the region is important. And as many of you know, I have enjoyed being involved in planning and economic development for the 10 years I was on the board, and continue to have an interest in that for the city of Nashua.
Okay, thank you. Anyone from the committee have questions for Mary Ann? No one? Shoshana, do you see anyone?
Tom's waving his hand.
Oh, no, Tom's waving because he was off before, so in my defense.
Okay, thanks for waving your hand, Tom.
I'm always off. So Mary Ann, very well, so I don't have any questions. I just wanted to express my enthusiasm that she's willing to step forward and do this. I know as an alderman, she has a lot of really good experience with plan. She was one of the first aldermen that I before joining the board. because of her work with the Cultural Committee. And I found her to be a very, very, very effective community liaison. And I think that's what city and planning is going to need here, and ensure that the authentic needs of communities that are played right now are not being pushed aside in favor of the opportunities for development and growth and change. Because I think the strength that Nashua has is that it builds on its traditions in a very effective and positive way. That's a tradition of inclusion, that's a tradition of multiculturalism. I would hate to see us embark upon a plan where we're more interested in looking at increasing the tax base or copying an image of a faraway city or something like that. Having people who are able to effectively communicate what the committee is doing and what its reasoning is to the community, I think is very valuable. And having somebody like Marianne Malisi, who's a former alderman, there to do that gives us a lot of credibility, because she's not a current alderman, so she's not part of any like inner circles or anything, but she is experienced, she is credible, and she knows what she's doing. So thank you for joining, Marianne.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay,
Alderman
if
Wiltshire?
not, Mary.
Alderman
Alderman
Wiltshire?
Wiltshire.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman.
Marianne, thank you for stepping forward. I know this has been, it's been in your wheelhouse for the time you've been involved in the city, and really appreciate you coming forward. And it's a good time for you to come forward. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
It's going to be nice to have you back and involved. I really appreciate it. And I think with your background, you know, I think you'll serve the city well once again. So I really appreciate that. And you know, maybe you can also help the new planning manager with your expertise and things. Have you had a chance to meet Matt Sullivan?
No, I have not.
Okay,
I have
well, we
not.
met him last night, so I'm sure very soon you'll have the opportunity. Anyway, thank you. You got a lot of work cut out for you, and I appreciate that you stepped forward to do it. All of you who stepped forward. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. I think it's very exciting.
I agree.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you, Marianne, for coming out again. So you can't leave the city, even though you're out of the circle. We will pick up your appointment later on in the meeting, and you'll be notified to attend the Board of Aldermen meeting to get sworn in. So you don't have to stay online to listen to the rest of the meeting if you choose not to. And again,
Okay, well, you're welcome. I'm going to say good night, and I hope you have a short evening.
Oh, thank you.
Thank
Can
you.
I just ask? Sorry, June.
Yep,
Can
go
all
ahead.
the aldermen, if possible, turn on their video? It's just really hard for me to. There's so many people on this call. It's hard for me to keep track, and then that way they get pinned to the top. If you have the ability, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, but we've also been told by IT not to turn all our videos on because it ruins the bandwidth.
Right.
As the
Well,
person
I'm
who has my
going
video
to say,
off.
I'm going to say good night, and
Thank you.
have a good evening. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, Mary, your next nominee?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. For the Ward 5 representative on the Master Planning Committee, I nominated Gloria McCarthy. Gloria has been a resident of Nashua and in Ward 5 for about 40 years. She has been a very close observer of city government and of all of the planning efforts of the city for a long time. She now serves on the Conservation Commission, where I know she's doing a very good job. She's very concerned and interested about Nashua's future. And again, I believe, and I know that she will make a very positive contribution towards the master planning effort.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Gloria, are you online?
I am. Yes, I've lived actually in Nashua for 40 years, 1 month and 4 days. So I have been around for a little while. Some may still consider me a newcomer, but you know, those extra 4 days might change that. I've worked in the school department as a paraeducator for 25 of those years. And as Mayor Don just said, I'm an alternate actually on the Conservation Commission. And our children, Kim and John, both grew up here in Nashua. And so I appreciate the opportunity to serve on the Master Plan Committee. I think that the master plan, we should look over what we have as a master plan and see what areas have worked out well, what was done that made those areas successful, what we might not have done yet, or what we could do to make, or what was done that wasn't successful, and what could be done to change that so that the city as a whole is a warm, welcoming place to be. And that's about it, except that if you want to have your hand raised, if you go to participants at the bottom of your screen, this is something I learned in school this week. You go to where it says participants at the bottom of the screen and you click on it, you'll get a whole list of everybody that's there. And one of the things you can choose is raise hand, and a little hand will show up on the screen. So you don't have to stay and wave at the screen, it'll show up, and then actually Alderwoman Kelly will be able to see who's trying to get her attention. So
thank you, Gloria.
For the record, you also have to lower your hand because some of our public commenters and our president have their hands up.
Thank you, Gloria, for that IT explanation.
Sure.
So is there anyone out there with a raised hand that has any questions for Gloria McCarthy?
I actually have a question. My hand is not raised.
Okay, Alderman Kelly.
Thank you for that. It's just, I don't envy you, Alderman Wilshire. It's hard when there's this many people. I've got multiple pages of people and trying to make sure it's not an easy task. I want to say thank you for stepping forward. Obviously, you have an incredible background for this. I'm just interested as someone 40 years and a day, you said?
40 years, 1 month and a day.
1 month and a day. What you think, some of the priorities are in your mind?
Well, I think we need to, one of the things we probably has been stated before, we need to have a viable downtown, have a place for people to go to have something interesting to do, other than, and nothing's wrong with the restaurants, but other than just going to a restaurant or going to a bar, there should be some other interesting things to do. I think it's important to have some green space around so that not everything is all built up. I think the neighborhoods, as they're being built up, you need to be considerate of what's going where. You want to be sure that the buildings that are being built are compatible to the neighborhoods that they're being built in, and that the zoning that's in place is being adhered to, so that you just don't have a whole patchwork of things all over the place.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other questions out there from the committee?
Tom has his hand up.
Oh, Tom has his hand up.
But it's okay.
You have Alderman Wilshire and Tom Lopez.
Sorry.
Okay,
she's
we'll
not on my
start with
screen.
Alderman Lopez.
I just had a question for Ms. McCarthy. Regarding planning and zoning and that kind of stuff, do you have any experience or ideas about how to address the needs of residential neighborhoods where people be obtaining a variance in some areas and starting to kind of edge in with a business and then pass it on to someone else, and now that person makes that business a little bit bigger, find some parcels? Is that something that you anticipate looking at with the zoning board and part of the planning?
I assume that everything is on the table when you're doing a master plan. I really have not done something like this before, but I think that you have to be careful just where you're putting things. You have to be respectful of the neighborhood. Like you wouldn't want to consider putting a casino in the middle of Ward 3 in like right opposite Greeley Park. I think that's Ward 3. Could be Ward 2. Something like that. So I think you need to be aware of where you want to put things and how that gets done.
Well, just for context, the mechanisms you guys put in place are likely to be used by the planning board to approve future projects. So it's going to be important to identify different regions so that you have, say, a large growing dentist in the middle of a residential neighborhood.
I'm sorry, I didn't get the second part of that.
So it'll be important to create a mechanism like a blueprint for the city, because then the zoning board is going to take your plan and move it forward over the next couple of years. And it's important to foresee issues like businesses that might go or exchange hands or have adjacent properties, and make that you are creating a scenario where a person can't insert, say, a large dentist into a residential neighborhood. That's a firsthand example from Ward 4. And it's kind of an ongoing issue where if there isn't a specific category in that neighborhood, then a variance can be granted that basically opens for a specific use to kind of sneak its way in forever.
Right. And that, I think that's something that needs to be addressed as we go along, is to be sure that what's going into neighborhoods or what's going into downtown or what's going into, you know, the outer rural areas, is what's there needs to fit the character of the neighborhood.
Well, for guidance on that last one, I'm sure you can talk to Alderman Wilshire.
Okay.
Okay. Alderman Wilshire, did you want to speak or ask a question?
I did want to speak. Thank you very much. So Gloria, thank you so much for stepping up. As long as I've been involved in national politics, I've known you and you've been involved. You are, I don't want to say on the sidelines because that's not really where you were, but you know, always involved, always at the events that that your husband was at. I know you, and I know that you're very bright, very interested in Nashua, and I'm so happy that you have, you know, stepped up to be part of this, because I think it's important, given all that you know, and as long as you've been involved, you're a great asset to this committee, and I really appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Clee.
Thank you, Alderwoman Kelly. I have more comment than question. But my first comment is, I'm definitely against a casino in Ward 3. We will not have a casino in Ward 3. Not as long as I'm alderman. Just want to get that on the record. Okay. Really, not anywhere. Okay, now that I've gotten that out, I too would like to say that since I've been around politics and so on, which is just a mere shadow of what Ms. McCarthy has been around, she's been extremely involved. I've run into her many times. I've asked her questions about the way things had been and so on. So I believe that she has the intuitiveness and the ability to do this kind of a job. And I appreciate that she stepped up, as well as everybody else. And I look forward to hearing from everybody on that list. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other aldermen with questions? I don't see any hands, June.
I can't tell who's speaking because their video's off.
Okay, thank you, Gloria, for stepping up to the plate. But come talk to me when you've been here 70-something years.
Well, see, I said I was a newcomer.
You are. But I thank you so much for stepping up to the plate, because you do have plenty to give to this committee.
Thank you.
And I will tell you the same. Your vote will come up at the another section of the meeting, and you'll be advised to attend the next Board of Aldermen meeting to be sworn in. And thank you so much for participating.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Okay.
Have a good night. Take care, Mayor Donches.
Thank you, Gloria.
Mayor, you're up.
Yes, Madam Chair. Next, I have appointed the Ward 7 representative, Peter Schaefer, who I believe is on here. Peter, are you here yet?
Here I am.
Hello. Peter Schaefer is a community activist who is familiar to many of you because he attends many meetings and has shown a great interest in Nashua and in our future. He is a electrical engineer, having received a degree from Villanova and a master's in computer science from RPI, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. The principal reason that I've nominated Mr. Schaefer is that he is a strong advocate for the East Side downtown neighborhood, which is part of Ward 7, where there aren't a lot of community advocates. He does a very good job in speaking for the residents of that neighborhood and of inner city neighborhoods in general. And I know he will be a strong contributor to our master planning effort.
Okay, Peter, would you like to give us a little reason as to why you want to join this committee?
Yeah, sure. First of all, I live within walking distance of downtown. Even though I'm on the far east of the city, I can see the bridge out my window right here. But it's still close enough to be downtown. And I also lived in the southwestern part of Nashua years ago. I've been in Nashua for over 30 years. I've always been interested in urban development, even though that's not my specialty. Livability is what I'm interested in. We have a city where we have a lot of communities with different flavors and so on, and we want to be able to figure out how to get around them and also show that flavor in each part of the city that can contribute different things to it. I'm very much into, linear parks, for example. We have Mine Falls Park, but we still have a lot of area. We have 2 rivers in Nashua. So we still have a lot of areas where we can add to that so that anybody in the city can get anywhere without having to walk on a busy street, for example. But I think there's a lot of things that we can do. My background is that, I was born in Germany, and, we tend to think a certain way in this country. We tend to think in terms of 30 years because everything has a 30-year mortgage. So we think 30 years ahead. Over in Germany, where I was born, the church in my hometown, is 1,000 years old. So they think a little differently about how they develop things. I've also lived in Reston, Virginia. I don't know if you ever heard of Reston, Virginia. That's a city that was actually designed before it was built. Okay, so those are different perspectives. They don't necessarily, all those pieces necessarily fit well within Nashua, because Nashua is what it is. It was meant for horses to start with. So we have to deal with those issues. But I think there are a lot of variables that we can work with to move Nashua ahead into the future. There's a lot of new technology as well that will impact us, and we should look at that. I do have some background in data analytics, which may be helpful. That's my spiel. Oh, one more thing. I am the only one in the city that has a Nashua Academy hat. Okay, that's it.
Okay, do we have any questions for Peter from committee members first?
Alderman Lopez.
Yeah, I just want to start by thanking Peter for volunteering. I know he's very involved in many things going on. He attends all of the coffee with the mayors and has been very involved in a lot of planning activities. I think Homa and I probably first met him when he was coming to talk about the Visualize Nashua things and his passion for the boat ramps. I hope you're pleased with all the progress we've made over the years, because there's like 4 new ones. And so I think he has a great sense of, and I've also recall him coming to Board of Aldermen meetings regularly regarding the roundabout and the efforts we've been making to improve the areas where Temple Street and East Hollis connect. So he's very neighborhood oriented as well. I'm a little jealous of your hat. That's okay. I'll get my own hat. And I'm just glad you're on the board. So I appreciate you coming to help with this.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the committee that has questions?
Alderman Wilshire.
I know I'm not on the committee, but thank you, Mr. Schaefer, for stepping forward as I mentioned earlier, I really appreciate the caliber of people the mayor put forward to this committee, and said that I knew most of them. You're the only one that I don't really know, but thank you for introducing yourself, and I'm sure you'll be an asset to this committee. And I especially appreciate that, you know, coming from Ward 7, there's a lot going on in Ward 7. So it's good to have a representative from that area. And thank you for stepping up to do it.
I don't see any other hands raised.
Okay. Mr. Schaefer, I want to thank you personally for offering to sit on this committee. I know how dedicated and passionate you are about that neighborhood that is in Ward 7, which is my ward. And I've worked with you on a couple of committees, and I know that you give 110%. So you will be a great asset on this master plan committee. And we will take up your nomination later in the meeting. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, Mayor, next
Yeah.
on your list.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next, I have nominated Jean Porter to represent Ward 3. Jean is, of course, known in Nashua for all the good work that he's done in terms of promoting the use of our rivers. He has worked to establish a boat ramp on the Merrimack River, also a strong advocate for the Nashua River, very strong supporter of the Nashua River Master Plan, and all of the things we're trying to do to enhance people's enjoyment of these very important bodies of water. Gene is a graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy. He also has a degree in physical oceanography. He's formerly worked on, as a member of the Navy or as a Navy service member, on nuclear submarines. He's worked at the Department of Defense down in Washington, and he could not be more committed to Nashua. So again, I know he will make a very strong contribution.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Porter, are you online?
I am.
Okay, would you please give us a little background and tell us why you'd like to be on this committee?
Yeah, I'm pleased to do that. I appreciate the mayor nominating me for this important committee. I put down roots in Nashua several decades ago after having knocked around Washington and the nuclear Navy for a while. And I've developed a fair experience in long-range planning, both in the Pentagon and in 10 years at Sanders Associates here in Nashua. So I'm committed to Nashua for the future, and I'm particularly appreciative of being nominated for this committee because I'm a strong supporter of what the mayor and Sarah Marchant have been doing in downtown Nashua, both with the Nashua River Waterfront project and the mayor's efforts to stimulate more lower cost housing downtown and more business development. My additional issues in the downtown area are pedestrian and bicycle access, so people don't have to drive half a mile or a mile from their apartments to downtown. They should be able to bike and walk from the new apartments that are going up around the downtown area. And so I'm pleased to see that the rail trail extension is moving along, moving from Main Street towards the Merrimack River. And also, as a member of the Nashua Conservation Commission, I've become enamored of Nashua's natural resources that are pretty well protected and are going to need to be protected in the future. And that's not just the Northwest Conservation Zone and the Southwest Trails area, but there's other natural resource areas in Nashua that warrant protection. So I'm looking forward to working with this committee and Sarah Marchant's team to put together a master plan that moves Nashua forward and is useful to the city, not just a document that sits on the shelf, but has some meaningful input to the actual future of the city. And so thanks again for the nomination, Mr. Mayor, and I hope you're feeling better.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any members of the committee that has any questions for Mr. Porter? Shoshanna?
I see Alderman Clee with her hand up. I just wanted to make sure there weren't any committee members first, since that's what you called for.
Okay.
Alderman
Okay,
Clee.
Alderman Clee?
Thank you so much. Again, it's not so much I have a question for Mr. Porter, but to add to his endorsement. Mr. Porter is one of my constituents, and I can tell you that I get regular updates. He watches over the city probably as much as I do, I believe. And I think he'd be a great advocate for this position. And he's not the kind of person that would just sign off on something that would just be done. He is going to want follow through. He's going to want to know how something like this can be done. He is a very detail oriented, obviously having the engineering background and so on, that's what's going to help too. So I would strongly recommend Mr. Porter.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Clee. Anyone else?
Alderman Wilshire.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Mr. Porter, for representing Ward 3, my former ward. I agree. I mean, there's so much change going on. And, you know, one of the things last week I was driving through the city and I'm like, I'm a native. I've lived here my whole life and I've seen a lot of change here in Nashua. But the change I've seen recently with all the trees gone is so nice to see the river. I mean, what an asset that's just been hidden for so long. And those types of things. I mean, I'm really excited about that. So I know that you will do a great job and that you'll represent Ward 3 very well. And thank you for stepping forward to do that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Porter, for putting your name out there to join this committee, and we'll take your name up for a vote later on in the meeting.
Thank you.
Mayor, your next nomination? Mayor?
You're on mute, Jim.
Sorry, I wanted to mention my nomination of Rabbi Jonathan Spira-Savet as the Ward 1 representative. Rabbi John, as we know him, could not be here tonight, but I'll speak briefly about him anyway. I think he'll be a very important member of the committee. He's, of course, not only rabbi at the Temple Beth Abraham, where he's been for quite some time, but he also is chair of the Interfaith Council and has really served as a moral leader in Nashua for a decade or so. He is a strong advocate of affordable housing, and that's one of the big reasons that I wanted to see him on the committee. And in addition to that, in his ward, Ward 1, we do have the campus, the former campus of the Daniel Webster College, which is one of the parcels that we're asking the master planning consultants and the committee to look at as far as recommending a future direction for that parcel, even though, of course, it is privately owned. So again, Rabbi John could not be here tonight, but I'm very glad to be able, was very glad when he agreed to serve as a member of the committee. And you might want to bring him back for another meeting, and I understand that completely, but at least I wanted to tell you about why I appointed him. Next, Madam Chair, is Marjorie Bollinger. She is a very active member of Nashua's arts community, specifically in music, and has been such for a long time. Also very community oriented, very downtown oriented. She's the music director of the Merrimack Flute Choir. She's performed with numerous orchestras and ensembles She's currently the principal flute of the Merrimack Valley Philharmonic. She's been on the Great Boston Flute Association, other musical organizations. She's past president and founding board member of City Arts Nashua. And I thought it was important to have someone who has an arts background and has an arts interest, because having a vital, a vibrant, a significant art scene and music scene here in Nashua is very important to the communities and the city's future. So I believe Marjorie will be a very strong nominee, strong member, and will contribute a lot to our master planning effort.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I just want to go back to the rabbi. He will be attending our October meeting after he sent note that he could not attend tonight's event. So Marjorie, are you there? And we'd like you to speak on why you would like to be on the master plan committee.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I've lived in Nashua since 2003. I've actually been involved in the music scene here since 1993. I've seen a lot of changes here since I've been coming to Nashua and living in Nashua, and some really amazing changes downtown. And it's just been so delightful to get involved in the community. We have amazing people here, amazing volunteers. I almost feel like I live in a small town, even though we're a city of almost 90,000 people. I'm passionate about the arts, of course. The mayor mentioned that. You know, and I'm in the city because I was honored to be asked, and I've talked to a few people about it before I committed. And one of the people who told me I had to be on this group was Mary Goyette. She said I had to say yes. But she's been telling me what to do for a while. But seriously, I'm really impressed with everything that the nominees have said so far. We need to consider the diversity in our city. We need to consider accessibility, transportation, our natural resources, the river. It's amazing, our plans for the river. I think we need to make sure that those happen. They're one of the things that make this a beautiful place to come to attract people, not just the people who live here, but people with, just for the beauty and the ability to enjoy our recreation and our things to do. We need more things to do than just eat downtown, of course. We kind of need to take a holistic view on all the plans. We need to look at transportation. We need to look at walkability. We need to think about how the different neighborhoods are, and, you know, look for maybe inequity and livability, you know, make sure that all of our neighborhoods are livable for the people who live there, and that the people in all of our wards have opportunities in their wards to do things or have access to parks or transportation and things like that. So I don't even know what I'm saying. You know, I'm just hoping we can take a holistic view, a futuristic view of, I mean, we've come from where we were to a great place, and we can be even better and a greater place to live. And I hope that we can lay out our plans in a way that can be realized.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from any of the committee members?
Alderman Lopez.
Sorry, I had a call to answer. So Marjorie, I've worked with you, City Arts Nashua, for quite a while. I know you're a very passionate, authentic person. And I like what you're saying about holistic approaches to amenities and entertainment and that type of thing. Because I do feel like we do have a lot of restaurants and bars down, but we are adding other things like walkable pathways, and there's a number of community centers sort of unrecognized. There isn't very much that's really done to promote the W's Veteran Center or the upcoming Recovery Community Center. What are your thoughts about how we could better recognize the monuments and the history of service Nashua has? You have like the mine over along Lead Street, which the pathways to it have degraded and could use a bit of funding in that area, or some of the existing infrastructure that if we focus entirely on the river, we would be neglecting those even further.
Oh, absolutely. And we want to make sure that our resources are accessible to all of our residents in all of our wards. And Lynch Street isn't that far from the river. It's not that far from downtown. It should be easily walkable from anybody that lives there. And I think most of the city should be that way. And I think there's a way we could make that happen. Where I lived in Ward 7 for years, and I absolutely adored and loved it there and found it very walkable, even in places with no sidewalks. But I'm up here in Ward 2 now, and I'm driving home from work and seeing people standing in the street waiting for the bus. You know, there's no sidewalks and there are all these bus stops, you know, and it's so dangerous on Amherst Street. I just think that's one thing we can look at. I mean, of course, I think we need to look at everything, but I think we can. There's enough. There are enough people on this committee and amazing people. I'd be honored to work with anyone here in this group.
Have you been introduced to the idea of form-based code?
Yes, from Jim Vale, a little bit, yeah.
Well,
So
I
I
have
think-
no idea how you apply that to a city like Nashua, where there's like 12 different centers, but it sounds like something that would be interesting, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what you can do with the master plan.
Yeah, I'm really excited to look at what we have and learn more about this and help the city be livable and wonderful for everyone in it.
I think your experience with Sim will be very, very helpful, because you need to have an innate understanding of how things work together in a sophisticated manner, and you're looking at multiple players all playing. And I think that's going to be a very good trait for us to see on the planning board. So thank you for stepping forward to volunteer.
Thank you.
Anyone else
Alderman-
that has a question?
Alderman Wilshire.
Thank you. First, I want to give a huge shout out to Mary Goyette. Bless her for realizing and knowing that arts are a very important part of our community and should be included in our master plan. So thanks to Mary Goyette for making you do this.
I'll tell you who said that.
Thank you, Marjorie, for stepping forward. I know that your input in this process will be valuable, and I appreciate you doing that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't see anyone else. Alderman Karen.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Marjorie, for stepping up to the plate to sit on this committee. There's a lot of work to be done, and I'm sure you're willing to get your hands dirty. You will be appointed later on during the meeting, and you'll get a phone call concerning the next Board of Aldermen meeting to be sworn in. And again, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Mayor.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Yes, my last nominee that's coming before you tonight is Amber Logue. Now, I've nominated her to be chair of the committee, the steering committee. She, throughout her life, and she's got an extensive resume that she's forwarded to the committee, has shown herself to be a very strong leader. She is an entrepreneur and has helped start a number of businesses, some of which have received interesting awards: top women-led companies, fastest growth privately held company in New Hampshire, on those kind of lists. Also in the community, she has taken a very strong role and organized totally the effort to establish a downtown dog park. She has proven to be very thorough, a very good researcher, someone who's very diligent and persistent in terms of pursuing community goals. She's also been a board member on, I believe, Positive Street Art, Hugo, excuse me. Of course, she's now on the Animal Advisory Committee. And I thought that since we are here planning to try to make Nashua a place that will be a wonderful place to live, not only now, but in 10 or 20 years, and that we're doing a lot of this for our future, our younger generation. In my view, it was important to have someone that represent the upcoming generation be on the committee, and in this case, chair the committee. Amber will be a representative of her generation, will bring a very, I think, sophisticated perspective to the committee regarding the future and how in the future we can make this a place where she and her cohort will want to continue to live and come to live. So again, I have nominated her because she's a strong leader, really well organized, very diligent, and will be a great leader for this project.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Amber, are you online?
I am.
Thank you. Please give us a little background and your willingness to participate on this committee.
Sure. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Mayor. Those are very kind words. And I hope that you're feeling well and have a speedy and safe recovery. So to add on to that, I was born and raised here in Nashua and have attended several of our public schools. And like many people within my generation, if you will, moved and came back. So I left the city for about 10 years, headed out west, and had this nagging feeling to come back home. And so Nashua has been home again now for just about 8 years. In those 8 years, I have thrown myself into developing a future that I would want to not just live in for myself, but also from what I've seen, my peers discuss, and also people across all vast diversity of different businesses, housing needs, generations, social, economic needs, etc. And even those without, even our furry friends with 4 legs. So, and really creating a city that is something that we're even more proud of than we already are. So it was an honor when the mayor had asked me to consider serving in this position. I at first had no idea necessarily what that meant, and really took some time to reflect on what that would be. And leading this dynamic and incredible group committee is just an incredible honor, and I would be proud to serve in that capacity.
Okay. All right, thank you. Do we have any members of the committee who have questions? Alderman Lopez?
You can't see him, you just knew.
So I want to thank Amber Logue for taking this position on. I assume this won't take away from her duties as the founder and president of Operation Enduring Welcome. She, as far as I've experienced, has been a very capable leader. She's very grounded and she's very engaging to people. As the mayor said, she does her homework very thoroughly. And I think that's largely what is responsible for the success that Excel Mobile and the other places that she's worked at have enjoyed. Amber, can you tell the committee a little bit about your connection with the Tree Streets?
Sure. So I was born on Walnut Street, lived there for a while, moved to Little Florida, and then back to Vine Street. And during that time, only realizing this later in life, not realizing it at the time, was a recipient of the Marguerite's Place in helping to find suitable housing. And was actively using the backdoor entrance to the former soup kitchen, and thought that it was just somebody's kitchen that they were letting us come in and take some food. And I thought that was really nice, but I was tired of macaroni and cheese. However, it was an interesting time, and even then returning back to work with off of Chestnut Street for about 7 years, and ended up hiring a major portion of residents that came from that area to join our company because it was walkable. It was a place that they could quickly get to, and we didn't have requirements that maybe of other jobs that they could, necessarily have, like a degree, English as a first language. And so it was an honor to be able to not just live and work in that community, but also to support it.
So I am excited about your nomination because what you're describing about how your experience with the soup kitchen is exactly what the founders of it had in mind. Same with Marguerite's Place. And there's a lot of places, particularly in Ward 4 and in the Tree Streets, that may have a public perception, but they work very, very hard to make sure that the experience of people who are working with them and in need of their services is very, very different. We're a little bit light on Ward 4 representatives at the moment, so I'm glad that you can bring that perspective. And then also I would invite other committee members to look at the sign behind Amber's head when you ask her a question.
Oh, this way.
That's part of the You Are Awesome movement that Greg started a couple of years ago. And I just think it says a lot about Amber that she's chosen to keep that up on her wall.
Thank you, Tom.
Alderman
Anyone
Wilshire?
else?
Thank you.
You have Alderman Wilshire and then Alderman.
Okay, well, thank you, Amber, for stepping up to do this. I think you got maybe bit by the committee bug several months back for the dog. Well, it's probably been longer than a few months, but thank you once again for stepping forward. You've got a big job here. If you're going to be chairing this, you've got a big job, and I'm very impressed with the group of people. So I think they're going to make the work easier for you, and just good luck and, whatever you need. But this is pretty fantastic group of people you have to work with, and I'm sure you're going to be great doing it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Alderman Craig.
Yeah, thank you very much. I don't have a question. I just want to make a comment. I echo the words of Alderman Lopez and Alderman Wilshire. Amber is also, again, one of my constituents here in Ward 3. And Tom, you can't have her. She's ours. She is incredible for the city. Just the fact that one of the stories that I know about Amber is walking by the Delaney's house and seeing that they didn't have enough or any Christmas decorations, and she said that just wasn't acceptable, and created the Christmas tree decorating contest. She and Alderman Lopez and others have worked on that for so many years and so on. But this is the type of person that Amber is. When she sees something isn't right, she doesn't just continue walking by. She does something about it, and I believe she's a perfect job to lead this incredible group of people. So thank you so much, Amber, for accepting it and just standing up.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay.
Thank you. I wanted to save my comments to the end. I just want to thank everybody for coming forward and participating in this. In the committee, I think that you're all going to really bring something different to the table, and I look forward to seeing the results of everything. So thank you very much for your participation and your willingness to serve. I appreciate it.
Thank you,
Alderman Cleaver.
Yes, thank you very much. Just like to say thanks to all of these people for stepping forward. Very, very impressive list of people. The mayor's done a masterful job of putting together the master plan committee, and I'm looking forward to their work.
Thank you, Alderman Cleaver. Anyone else? Okay. Amber, we're delighted that you said yes to the mayor and that you're willing to take the big chair to oversee this committee, and you have some wonderful people to work with. And again, Mayor, you've done a good job on your nominations for this committee. So we will take up your vote shortly, and you will get a phone call concerning your swearing in. Again, thank you, Amber.
Thank
And
you.
Madam Chair, I think that's the last of my nominees that you're interviewing tonight. The rest are all reappointments.
Right. Yes, it is, Mayor. And we thank you for stepping in and coming to visit us today. And we hope that you and your wife, Vicki, are feeling well and on the mend.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we'll get back to the meeting. Madam Clerk, we have application to license hawkers, peddlers, vendors license.
There are none.
Okay, appointments by the mayor. Alderwoman Kelly, will you make the motion, please? And please leave out the reverend's name.
Oh, I see them. Okay. Yep. I
Thank
move
you.
to recommend the confirmation of the following appointments to the Business and Industrial Development Authority. Jack Kelly, reappointment with a term to expire September 13th, 2023. Mark Perlman, reappointment with a term to expire April 30th, 2023. Energy and Environment Committee, Anita Arden-Kalla, reappointment with a term to expire March 31st, 2023. The following new members to the Master Plan Committee: Marianne Malizi-Goja, Homa Jaffrey, Gloria McCarthy, Peter Schaefer, Jean Porter, Marjorie Bollinger, and Amber Logue. I don't see any terms to expire, but I will keep going. Mine Falls Park Advisory Committee, Greg Adrashevitz, reappointment. Yeah, that. We need to put pronunciations on here. With a term to expire June 30th, 2023. Nashua Airport Authority, David Heath, reappointment with a term to expire August 31st, 2025. National Arts Commission, Paul LaFlamme, reappointment with a term to expire April 1st, 2022. And Judith Carlson, reappointment with a term to expire April 1st, 2023. National Planning Board, Mike Peterson, reappointment with a term to expire January 1st, 2024. Scott LeClore, reappointment with a term to expire on March 31st, 2022. Lawrence Hirsch, reappointment. And Maggie Harper, reappointment, both with terms to expire March 31st, 2023. And the following reappointments to the Tax Increment Financing Advisory Board: Sarah Marchant, Chris Lewis, David Referdat, Eric Durrott, Tim Cummings, Michael Serrato, and Tia Phillips, with all terms to expire September 30th, 2021 by roll call. Madam Chair, if I may, I'm just surprised there was no term to expire on the new committee. Was that a typo?
I don't know. I didn't see it either. So maybe it's only until the master plan is put together. So we can double check with Donna tomorrow or the mayor's office.
Director Marchand is waving his hand frantically.
Okay. All right. Before you call, Sarah, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you. There is no end term because this is specifically to complete the master plan. This is a 12 to 15 month process. So it isn't it isn't supposed to be an extended period of time, and that is why there is no end of the term. And thank you to everybody for the nominations tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Marchand, for that clarification. I appreciate that. Okay.
Okay. So would the clerk please call the roll?
I sure will. Alderman Karen.
Yes.
Alderman Clemens.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yeah.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Thank you. Alderman Kelly votes yes. Alderman Cleaver.
Yes.
You have 5 yeas and 0 nays.
Okay. So motion has carried. and everyone will be notified. Thank you. Next, unfinished business.
There's none.
Okay. New business resolution.
We have before us R 20064 relative to the appropriation of $99,800 from Department 194 contingency account number 70100 general contingency into various accounts in Department 103 legal.
Okay, and I think Director Kleiner is here to speak about this particular resolution. Are you still here?
Director Kleiner still here, and Attorney Bolton also unmuted himself.
Okay, who would like to speak first?
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. So I did speak with Mayor Donchis today, and he asked me to speak a little bit about the position as we spoke with him. HR has worked with the mayor about, and we have engaged with the New Hampshire Municipal Association and written a draft of the job description, which we have forwarded to Attorney Bolton for his review and his additions. As you know, the city has been faced with a number of multiple requests, which many departments have worked on gathering the information for these requests. Attorney Bolton can speak more to the workload that has been entailed by the legal department. But as many of the administrative services division departments have been involved in these requests, it takes a significant amount of time. We look for direction on what documents need to be pulled and coordinated. This position is not one that is abnormal to large municipalities. What we have found is this positions very similar to this are located in other municipalities. It will provide more coordination. Some of the things that we have realized that this position should be engaged in is really working with all city employees and elected boards to instruct, advise, assist, and monitor statutory compliance. They will help to implement policies and procedures and manage governmental records, help us to conduct internal research to locate relevant paper and electronic records when a request is filed with the city, ensure that accurate and legal decisions are made regarding the disclosure or non-disclosure of information, and assess across the city kind of in a uniformed manner how we coordinate that response. So we feel very strongly in administrative services and HR that this position will add significant value to the city and to our residents or to members of the public that may form these requests and file them with the city. We have looked upon other jobs, and we have placed this on the scale as an unaffiliated merit employee, which is where you find the request for funding. We have found that this would be a classification grade 15, and that is what we have advised the mayor as to what the request for funding should be. And I'll turn it over to Attorney Bolton for more information.
Thank you, Director Kleiner. Over the past few years, right-to-know requests and right-to-know requirements in responding to those requests and adhering to the open meeting provisions of the right to know law have become more and more exacting and time consuming. They've been taken more and more seriously by the courts. It creates an area of exposure at a higher level than was recognized in the past. We have seen over, as I say, the past 4 or 5 years, a propensity for pre-litigation investigation by law firms requesting a great deal of background information on areas of our infrastructure, including roads and bridges and sewer, stormwater drainage, etc. A lot of this requires legal knowledge in order to coordinate the replies. Much of it requires the specific subject matter expertise of our various departments, and it's created quite a demand. Particularly in the last year to 2 years, we've had a few citizens exercising their rights to request large volumes of documents to explore what they believe may be deficiencies in the quality of service provided by the city. Whether or not we agree with them, whether or not anyone agrees with them, most of city records should be made available to the public, should be made available within a reasonable time. And that has created a greater demand than we are presently really capable of fulfilling. Over the last year, 2 members of the legal department, Deputy Corporation Counsel Celia Leonard and legal assistant Manuela Perry, have devoted essentially half their time to dealing with right to know law issues, producing documents, reviewing documents, redacting information that should not be available for disclosure because of certain exceptions or exemptions in the law, which are in the law for a good and reasonable purpose, not just to hide things or keep things secret, but there are some things that are not appropriate for full disclosure, or at least not appropriate at certain times when you may be in the midst of negotiating settlements of claims or purchasing property or settling union contracts or grievances. Obviously, you can't do that. It would be like playing poker and showing your hand to your opponents. That being the case, that is taken away. And I should say, although those 2 employees have devoted approximately half their time, the remainder of the staff have also devoted significant time in these areas. That being the case, it's been thought that the city really requires a specialist in this area, someone who would have expertise in the statutory requirement, as well as develop an affinity to work with our various departments and learn what records they maintain, how they maintain them, what is readily available and what is either not available at all or is available only with significant research and effort. Having this specialist position will enable us to more effectively and efficiently respond to these inquiries, which we are required by law to respond to, and will free up personnel who are needed for other purposes. it may not be obvious what goes on in the legal department on a day-to-day basis. All of you aldermen are obviously aware of the legislation that comes in at every meeting, much of that at your behest. We draft and or review all of those things. We draft and review all contracts before they're presented to you, even smaller contracts that don't rise to the level of your scrutiny. We represent every city agency in various types of court proceedings and legal matters. We negotiate collective bargaining agreements. We negotiate contracts for the purchase of property, both real and personal. We could justify hiring more lawyers and more legal staff. But at least as a first step, if we can take some of this right to know work off of our plates, it will free us up not to have to hire outside counsel in some areas, and will allow a better response to all aspects of the right to know law, which we really have no choice but to respond to. Citizens have a right to have open meetings, which they can view and find and be aware of, as well as a right to see almost all city documents within a reasonable time upon their request. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Attorney Bolton. Do we have any questions or comments from members of the committee first, and then other aldermen after that?
The Alderman Clemens.
Thank you. I think this is a good idea. I think it's something that has been apparent that we've needed for a while. I'm just hoping that $100,000 is enough to attract somebody to take the abuse that they're probably going to get from the job. Thank you.
I probably ought to add that the 100,000 approximately is not salary. It also includes benefits and related expenditures. So if we can find an appropriate person for this much, I think we'll be very fortunate.
We will be very, very fortunate.
I have a question.
Alderman Kelly?
Yes. So thank you, Attorney Bolton. This seems to make a lot of sense for the current situation and trying to free up people in your staff. My question is, you said that there has been a rise in the last couple of years. If those requests go back, what would the staff person then do?
I'll find work.
Okay.
There is plenty to do.
Okay. Anyone else?
Alderman Wilshire.
Hand up.
I was on mute, sorry. I just said you have Alderman Lopez and Alderman Wilshire with their hands up.
With regards to this position, would they be able to help, assuming there's a lull in the right to know requests and that kind of stuff, would they be able to help maybe brief committee chairs, for example, the Cultural Connections Committee or the Downtown Improvement Committee that might be incoming and less experienced on how to navigate things, certain requirements for how to file their minutes and their notes and all that kind of stuff?
That is one of the tasks I envision that would be assigned to this position, yes.
Okay.
Alderman Wilshire?
Thank you. What are the credentials? Is this person a member of the bar or not an attorney at all?
We're not setting it up to require a member of the bar. I'd love it if we could attract a young lawyer who would be interested in doing this. So that is definitely a possibility. Another possibility is someone who's worked as a paralegal, someone who has worked in a city or town office, perhaps a city clerk's office, or in a town administrator's office, town or city manager's office. There are a lot of different paths that might familiarize someone with the kind of work we envision. But those are a few examples of people that I would certainly be considering.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else?
I have one more question.
Okay, Alderwoman Kelly.
Forgive me if this is putting you on the spot. You don't have it in your hands, but I was wondering if there has been overtime overages because of current requests.
Manuela has put in some overtime hours, and we, you may remember, we had a small amount of money, I believe it was $10,000 transferred in last year to provide for some overtime hours for Manuela to work. As it happens, Celia and Dory and I are exempt from the overtime requirements, so we just work any 60 or 70 hours a week that we choose at no additional compensation. But we did pay Manuela a little bit for overtime last year, not the full $10,000, however.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. If no one else, Alderman Kelly, would you like to make a motion?
I believe no, I didn't. I just read it.
No.
It's been a while. It's been a long night. I would like to move to recommend final passage of R 20-064 by roll call.
Okay.
Anyone
You heard the
else?
motion. Do we have any comments? Okay, will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Karen.
Yes.
Alderman Clemens.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
I vote yes. Alderman Cleaver.
Yes.
You have 5 yeas.
Okay, motion passed. Thank you, Director Kleiner and Attorney Bolton. Attorney Bolton, will you be staying on for the next
Yes.
ordinance? Thank you. Okay. We have new business ordinances.
Before us tonight, we have 2029. I'm sorry, Jane, did you say something?
Yep.
Okay.
Supplement requirements relative to face coverings.
I'll move to recommend final passes as amended by roll call.
Okay. Attorney Bolton, would you like to explain your amended version to us?
Yes, and I
Thank
have to
you.
apologize because I've made a confusing mess out of this, I'm afraid. When I went to add another section that was pointed out to me that needed some help, or that the board might want to consider, instead of having in front of me what has been introduced to you and what is currently on your agenda, I had an older draft. So if you'll notice, what I had sent to you earlier in this week added a new section 16, which concerned medical advice against wearing masks. The ordinance in its current form before you, in fact, has a section 16. So if you were to desire the additional language provided in the version I sent earlier this week, I would suggest you number that as 17 and add it to the version that is actually had been introduced previously and is before you. More in general, the purpose of this ordinance is to try and address particular types of businesses which the current ordinance, the one you passed earlier this year, did not address or did not address fully, or may have left some vague areas. So for example, we talk about in section 13, what is referred to as places of amusement, and examples of bingo halls and bowling alleys, charitable gaming facilities, and so forth, where food may be served, but the primary business is doing something else, bowling or playing pool or playing bingo. And the theory there is just because food is served does not mean anytime you're sitting down, the mask should be removed. The mask should be removed while food or beverage is being consumed, and not just all the time. Similarly, with requirements at gyms, where the mask can be removed if social distancing is maintained and exercising or using the exercise equipment is being done. When we passed the original face covering ordinance back in May, we were right on the threshold of allowing restaurants to offer outdoor dining, and outdoor dining was addressed then. Since then, as you know, we are having indoor dining, some limitations. The previous mask ordinance, the current mask ordinance, did not address indoor dining, but merely outdoor dining, because that was what was being contemplated at that time. This adds the same requirement indoors, that the mask should be worn except when seated at a table in engaging in dining, or at least in anticipation of dining. It also provides for a notice of the requirement of face coverings to be posted at the entrance of businesses. So in general, it tries to address areas that were not addressed at all or seem to be not addressed as fully as necessary in the previous legislation.
Okay. Thank you, Attorney Bolton. Does anyone have any questions for Attorney Bolton?
Alderman Lopez?
It wasn't really a question. I just wanted to speak on the ordinance.
Thank you. You may.
So I had reached out to Attorney Bolton earlier in the summer, following a number of constituent complaints that I had regarding masks, or he had adopted was being implemented in larger scale settings. Because we first implemented it, it was very controversial. We had a ton of public comment about it, but it was unquestionably the right call. In the middle of watching a hotspot explode in Boston and pages of obituaries, emerge, and something needed to be done because the state wasn't going to action on the whole state level. So in order to ensure that we were successfully come out of lockdown and have our businesses downtown thriving without constant outbreaks interrupting our daily business, we enacted the masking ordinance. And when it first came out, and when people first coming out of lockdown, they were very diligent and they were very careful. Businesses were only open outdoors, and there was very limited interaction. And I think at that time it was an appropriate measured step. But I think since then we've been seeing a tremendous amount of mask fatigue, of COVID-19 misinformation spreading, a lot of dilution of valuable public health knowledge has been happening, where you can have a CDC report that literally says one thing and have a number of people reference it sort of anecdotal with the complete opposite interpretation confidently. So I think people in general have such a very number of opinions about face masks as well, that this is an important ordinance, first and foremost because it requires that the actual be posted at businesses. Because I've seen a number of businesses posting part ordinance, imaginary sections of the ordinance exempting different store employees or people in different circumstances, and basically speaking on behalf of the Board of Aldermen, which we did our due diligence. We went to the Board of Health, we consulted a lot of medical professionals and came up with exactly what we felt was necessary to address the situation. And I don't think it's wise, especially in a situation where there's so much on federal and state levels. Sorry, somebody's interrupting. For us to do that too. I think the thing we need to do is have clear messaging going into the fall, where we are at greater risk as people move indoors, as restaurants are fully open, and where children and college are returning to school, seeing a more flow. I do think that the concept of the mask itself is well proven. The states around us have enacted full state mask ordinances, and it has been directly correlated with a drop in the outbreaks that we have seen. But masks are not perfect, and the absence of effective use of them, on the voluntary level, could involuntarily engage a bunch of strangers in what's happening to that individual. So the mayor tested positive for COVID-19. Individuals interacted with the mayor. I interacted with individuals. Chose to wear a mask outdoors and everywhere that I go, including working at the polling station. And because of that, I have reasonable confidence that I didn't catch COVID-19 and then unwillingly spread it to other people. But as we engage in more public activity and more engagement, and as we move ourselves indoors, we can't take it for granted any further. I think ensuring that individuals are reminded that they need to do this, the change in the mandate so that employers are also re-engaged in the system is crucial at this particular time. There were some amendments added regarding gyms and social distancing use there, and that Attorney Bolton went over. I think those are good amendments as well. This was thoroughly reviewed by the Board of Health and reviewed again when an alderman came to the following and asked for additional information. And it was observed by Board of Health members that they are seeing exactly what the concerns raised several months ago are, that in larger scale group settings, you're seeing less mask adherence and in only people to start spreading it here in Nashville. I see an outbreak. I am seeing more numbers of people contacted with contact tracing, even though we have a smaller number of positive cases. So I would hate to see us not act as prudently as we did in the past and create a scenario where just the decisions of a few people can create a problem for many.
Thank you, Alderman Lopez.
From the committee, you have Alderman Clemens and myself.
Okay, Alderman Clemens and then Alderwoman Kelly.
Thank you. I have a few questions that I'm not sure how the ordinance works, so I wanted to ask the attorney if possible. So if it's my understanding by reading this ordinance that this ordinance compels a manager or somebody in authority in a store or a place of service, let's say, to enforce the mask ordinance if somebody walks into the establishment not wearing a mask. This compels them to basically tell that person they have to wear a mask. And if they don't wear the mask, then they have to ask this person to leave. Is that correct?
That is essentially correct. I would not use the term enforce. I would say, though it is correct, it compels them not to allow someone to remain on the premises unmasked.
What is in the ordinance? What happens if that doesn't happen?
Then the person who has violated the ordinance is subject to the usual penalties for ordinance violation. which can be a fine of up to $1,000.
So how in your mind would that be proven? Or how in your mind would a summons of some kind be issued to a business if this were to occur? So in
Someone
other
could
words,
go-
if let's say, give you a scenario. Let's say you have a business owner that decides they're not going to enforce the ordinance. And
Well, again,
they
Alderman
allow-
Clemens, I would not use the word enforce in that
Okay.
sense. A business owner must obey the ordinance, but has no authority to enforce anything. They can ask people and they can direct people on their premises to leave. If the person fails to leave, then that person can be arrested for trespass. If that person fails to leave and is themselves in violation of the face covering requirement, they can be subject to a fine. So if the business owner or the manager in charge calls the police when someone fails to leave, the police can respond just as if the person was disruptive in any other way. So
Yeah.
this is not the business enforcing the law. This is business complying with the law.
Okay.
Now, if a business says, I don't care about your law, City of Nashua, if there's someone else on the premises who is concerned about people following the law, that person could call the police. If the police arrive and there is someone who's been allowed to remain on the premises without the face covering, the police could cite the business and the non-complying individual.
Okay. So my question on that then is the following. What about, so you suggested in your, and I believe it was in the amendment, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we have, if a person has a medical issue, that we require them to carry a note from a doctor. Is that correct?
That is what the suggested amendment would require, yes.
And that does not violate HIPAA laws?
No.
Okay. I mean, the state of Massachusetts says that it does.
Well, I disagree, so.
So what happens then if a manager has seen the so-called letter or whatever it is, but someone else in the store didn't know that the manager.
Alderman Clemens,
you know, I'm asking these questions because these are legitimate scenarios that could happen under the ordinance. And I'm asking,
you
what
understand?
would
Let me make a point, please. I am not promoting this. I have written what someone has asked me to write. So when you say the so-called letter and attempt to denigrate what I have done,
no,
or suggest that my ideas are not valid, these are not my ideas. I've tried to put them in a proper legal framework, but if you choose to accept them, that's fine. If you choose to reject them as being inexpedient, that's fine too. I'm here to explain, but I have no stake in the game. So
right, and I don't mean to come off as saying that you know, I understand that you're doing what you were asked by someone else, and I get that. But I'm asking from an enforcement perspective how realistic this really is, and whether or not we think that this is actually going to work. Because my concern is this: if we pass this ordinance and in the way that it is written now, how much time are the police going to actually spend? If a person is upset that somebody's walking around the grocery store without a mask, are they going to get calls every day in order, you know, That's what I'm worried about. I'm worried about, are we putting into the hands of the public the ability to call the police on their neighbors, and getting stores into trouble and managers into trouble who may not know what's going on in a giant supermarket like Market Basket, for example. I guess I'm wondering out loud whether or not this is something that is actually enforceable, and whether or not it's something that we can legitimately think is going to help the situation. I guess that is where I'm coming from. And I don't expect you to have an answer to that, but it would be nice to hear from the police department on what they think about it. It would be nice to hear from some stores, and I've also heard from restaurants that are not happy about this ordinance coming into place, because again, they feel that they are being put into a situation where they have to where they can be put into a situation by somebody else, a third party, and have to deal with the police because somebody else sees something, but they don't understand the entirety of the situation. So a guy walking around the store that's already talked to the manager and has permission to be there, he has the note in his pocket, and he's doing his grocery shopping, and then somebody else in the store goes to the manager and they don't believe the manager, they call the police. I can see this happening. And so I just am worried, to what extent this is going to happen, because from what I understand, it's been a problem with the police, and it doesn't seem like this is going to fix the problem. It seems like it's going to make it worse. So that's just my opinion.
I don't get the idea that there's a question here, so.
Nope.
Okay. Thank you,
I think
Attorney
it's my
Bolton.
turn.
Yes, Alderman Kelly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm going to support this ordinance. I think what we have in front of us is a clarification of something that has already done a good job of helping us control what's going on in a 2020 pandemic in our city. And this is, I look at it as clarification. What happens when, and we got some calls right after, things change, what do I do when my gym opens, that kind of thing. So that's simply allowing businesses to have more outline for how they are able to do business. So I appreciate that in terms of being able to clarify for everyone that. I strongly disagree that having something like this is unenforceable or is a due hardship to businesses. I don't see it any different than a business having to tell someone if they walk into their restaurant that they have to put shoes on. And it's become entirely too political. It is to support the recommendations of our public health experts who are telling us that this is what we need to do. And it's simply what we have to do. Our public health experts are out there telling us this is what we need to do, and we need to make sure that it happens in our city, not just for ourselves, but for those around us.
Thank you, Alderman Kelly. Anyone else?
You have Alderman Klee, Alderman Cleaver, lots of people, Alderman Lopez and Alderman Liu.
Okay, so let's do our committee members first, and then we'll do the others. Alderman Cleaver?
Yes, thank you. I think we're making this far too complicated, as I agree with Alderwoman Kelly. No shoes, no shirt, no mask, no service. I think it's not that complicated. And I think that the medical scientific data is sufficient by far to say that we should do everything we can to enforce this in the city of Nashua. The least we can do, it's the only thing we can do, really. So I think we're overthinking the whole thing. It's just something we need to do.
Thank you, Alderman Cleaver. Alderman Lopez?
Yeah, I was speaking. This is Alderman Cleaver. There are certain things restaurants are entitled to do. For example, if a restaurant is over serving, then they're liable for that. So they overserve somebody, they can ask them to leave if they're intoxicated or acting disorderly. And if that person doesn't, then they do have the right to call the police, and the police manage that situation pretty regularly. So I don't think this is anything unusual in that regard. I also think that, you know, Nashua residents have the right to express concern to the police at any time if they see a crime that's being violated that affects them, whether it's somebody's parking in front of their driveway or whether it's somebody launching fireworks. I wish more people did that. That's part of what the community does. Handing anything unfair to the community, especially in the middle of a pandemic. I think this has been somewhat spun, adding the responsibility for enforcement onto businesses. But reality is we wrote the ordinance, the reasoning behind, so that we could explain, businesses could explain that the city had an ordinance and that people needed to follow it. The alternative choice was by businesses who just straight up said, oh, well, ordinances aren't laws, we don't need to follow that. So they're the ones who introduced the concept of, if you break the law, I won't tell on you because that's not my role. Now, in a pandemic, we kind of need to work together. It's not really helpful to be calling everybody Karens, with respect to Chairman Karen, and making light of the fact that people are doing their due diligence and informing an authority meant to regulate. I think we need to be conscious of that. And when people start to act out, instead of being collectively intimidated and saying, okay, well, we have a biological menace right now, but people don't like it, so let's lower our bar. That's not productive, and that's not responsible as aldermen. I think this is a case where if people do start calling the police to say certain businesses are not enforcing, the police are well trained in identifying a situation and seeing what's going on. And the same rules apply to any other type of enforcement activity. I have full confidence that the police will be able to enact a city ordinance. And I believe the police chief was very clear that if we pass an ordinance, they enforce it, and they're willing to enforce it. So I don't have those concerns. And then finally, I have spoken to a lot of the restaurant owners downtown, and as well as the retail. And the restaurant owners that I've honored are not particularly concerned because most of their business is done seated and eating. So as far as they're concerned, they just have to make sure somebody's wearing a mask coming in. It's not that hard, or they can seat them quickly. Now, the stores, the retail stores, so Lucky Dog Shop was brought up by one of the individuals who spoke in public comment. I've been going to them every week and giving them free masks because they give them out to everybody and they want people wearing masks in the store. They've been very good about making sure, because they don't want their staff to get sick and they don't want their customers to get sick. And there's a number of small retail stores that are capable of doing that. I've had as aldermen are almost exclusively the larger retail establishments. They have the capacity to manage what's going on in their building. They better have the ability to manage what's going on in their building. They're just choosing not to. They're putting their effort elsewhere. And I don't think that's necessarily an intentional policy decision, because many of the chains that I've heard complaints about not adhering to the mask policy here in New Hampshire are doing it in Massachusetts. I think the difference is here in New Hampshire, people are just tired and we don't have the same kind of universal guidelines. So they're cutting corners. And I think that's dangerous. If we have a store or a supermarket closed because there's a COVID-19 outbreak, that's part of our food supply chain. And I think it's important for aldermen to recognize that and take that are appropriate.
Thank you, Alderman Lopez. Alderman Liu, did you want to speak?
Yes, I'd like to just weigh in on this. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just wanted to share my perspective on this. And I started out disliking the mask ordinance because I didn't like the idea of legislating personal behavior. But what really convinced me is just that there was an executive order that was conditioning the opening of businesses on employees wearing masks. And that was a governor's order. That was a law in effect, I presumed. You can't hear me?
Yeah, you keep going in and out, Alderman Lou.
Oh. Well, let me turn off my video. And so when employees were required to wear masks, I became convinced that employees also deserve the protection. Now, if you can't hear me still, then I'll just.
No, we can hear you. You're okay.
I'm actually hearing your sound really well. I'd keep going.
Okay, so that's why I voted for the mask. When this ordinance new amendment came up, I went and visited a lot of the establishments in my ward, and I was surprised to find that every one of them, all but two, or maybe all but two, were incredibly compliant. They had signs, and I think that maybe the city has done a really good job in the last couple of weeks with the signs, or maybe not the city, but some of the organizations in town, because everyone seems to have signs now. But all but two were very strictly enforcing it. The way I feel about it now is it seems to me that the people that aren't enforcing it are often the essential types of stores that never did close down. There was never a a difficult period where they were unable to open. There are a couple of small convenience stores, and then the grocery store. So I do feel now that we need to at least ensure the business responsibility, because too many of them, just because too many of them put their own employees at risk, and they, especially when their employees are not wearing masks in the two convenience stores I went to, and at the grocery store, it just seems as though they're not taking the effort to simply say at the register, "I'm sorry, I can't sell this to you." So it just seems like a fairly easy thing for them to do, the few that I see that are not doing it. And if that's what it's going to take, then I think it's a good idea. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Alderman Lou. Alderman Clee?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a few things to say, but I do have a question for Attorney Bolton, more of a clarification. The changes to this, let me preface it with, often we've been hearing that it's not fair to force the employees, lower paid individuals, to force this type of an ordinance on these. But we are actually putting the onus more on the owner and or supervisor. Am I correct on that?
Yes, you're largely correct. Though it would count any employee. If any employee sells or provides a service to someone not wearing a mask, they would be in violation of the ordinance. So sale of a good or providing a service, they're supposed to say, no, I can't do that. It would be against the law. So I don't take it as any different than if you've got, an 18-year-old running the cash register at a convenience store, if some 17 or 18-year-old comes up with a 6-pack of beer, they've got to tell them no. And it does not strike me as, we're treading new ground here.
Thank you for that clarification. May I continue, Madam Chair?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. I do have a couple things to say about this. And recently I wrote something that said we need to continue with this, our mask ordinance. And I love the clarification in this particular one because it talks to gyms and so on. And I know places like Planet Fitness are having anxiety. They don't want to allow people to break the rules as we have it written. But to me, to not have this ordinance would be the equivalent of having some type of illness where the doctor gives you antibiotics and you're feeling better. So you say, I'm not going to finish the antibiotic. Well, more than likely, you're going to get sick right back again, and possibly even worse. Well, our numbers may be low, but our numbers are low because we are continuing to go with our mask ordinance and so on. The other comment that I want to make is a lot of people have said, well, if you're at risk, don't go to those places. Well, I don't think that's fair. Are we going to say that they can't go to grocery stores, or they can't go to the pizza joint, or they can't go here, or they can't go there? I don't think that's fair, limiting these people when the simple task is, if you can wear a mask, you wear a mask and you keep those people that are at risk. And I think that's really the only fair thing. If you can't wear a mask, I believe Attorney Bolton had suggested another paragraph that I assume that you guys will be trying to put towards an amendment. The other thing is the anger towards masks, those wearing them as well as those not wearing them. I can tell you, as a person who stood outside the polls for 14 hours, I had people literally coming up to me trying to get in my face to yell at me and call me communist because I was wearing a mask. The bottom line is that is because it has been politicized. I don't believe we're trying to politicize this. I think we're just trying to do the right thing. CDC says that the masks are a critical preventative, and they're essential in times when social distancing is difficult. If we want to remain open and we want to stay healthy, and we're on the border of Massachusetts who are doing this also, I think it's only the right thing is to continue this. I like this change. I think that this addition, supplemental, whatever you want to call it, clarifies things. And I appreciate what Attorney Bolton and those that are sponsoring it, such as myself, are doing to do this. CDC has it on their website. I made a lot of calls to different organizations for the ADA. Some of them, of course, wouldn't give me information because they say that, they'll represent the people and therefore they can't. But there is a site that I did go to, and that's the Southeast ADA Center. They're well known. They specifically talk to masks, and they talk about the necessity of wearing a mask, and to ask someone to wear a mask, or even to ask them for a piece of paper, is not against the ADA or their rights. So I think that we're doing the right thing. I think that we have to do the supplemental, to add things to gyms and to various other types of places. Let's see, I wrote so many notes. I apologize here for pausing to try to get this out there. And I can tell you, recently I had a phone call from a very upset person because there was a shop that refused masks. Their employees didn't have masks on. None of the customers had masks on. And when they said, you're in Nashua, there's a mask ordinance, they said, we didn't care, we'll get the fine, we'll take the fine. The person called me, so I called Chief Kerrigan to speak to him about this particular thing, to find out what we were doing. And as he's been doing, he said, we're just gonna go talk and educate. And that's really where the first line is trying to educate these people to say, you have to. Now, in that particular case, as Alderwoman Liu had pointed out, they were against the governor's orders because the employees, et cetera, were not wearing masks. I would not ask our police to enforce that. but you know, they would do what they have to do. I have not followed up with Chief Kerrigan, but one of the questions he asked me was, have you guys passed that supplemental? It'll make their job easier once we can pass this supplemental. So I think it would be good if you guys do the positive vote to push this forward to the Board of Aldermen. And at that, I'll stop. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Alderman Clemens, did you have a comment?
Yes, I just in conclusion, I will not be supporting this evening. I can't vote for something that's going to subjugate kids and other employees at stores to $1,000 fine when somebody may have a legitimate medical reason but not have a doctor's note on hand. I'm not also going to not refuse that person be able to get service at a grocery store or a pharmacy either. So I'm going to be voting no on this because I think the $1,000 fine that comes with this, the up to $1,000 fine, is way too high. I thought that before. I remain in that frame of mind. I do think it is important that everyone wears a mask. I do think that the ordinance, if it didn't have such a high fine, would be something that I could support, minus what I feel is a violation of people's HIPAA rights. So for those reasons, I'm going to be voting no.
Thank you, Alderman Clemens. Anyone else? Okay. Attorney Bolton, a couple of questions, and maybe you can't answer them. Has the health department, okay, has the health department made sure that especially our small businesses have signs at their front doors saying that masks are required within the building?
Our health department has these signs. They've been distributing them. Many businesses have posted them already. Any business who wants one and does not have one or two could call and get them. It doesn't require that our signs be used. It just requires that wording, face coverings required. So if they wanted, they could do their own design of such a sign. But I know our health department is distributing appropriate signs.
Okay, thank you. My other question, and it kind of goes to Alderman Clemens' concern about $1,000 fine. Has the police department given citations to
I am not aware.
You're not aware?
I'm not aware that any citations have been given. The police department does not choose the amount of fine imposed. Upon conviction, it is the judge that imposes the sentence. Up to $1,000 in an egregious case, or after several prior convictions, I can see $1,000 fine being imposed. In a particularly hostile situation where a business owner refuses to post the required sign, essentially invites people to flagrantly violate the law, I can see potentially $1,000 fine being imposed. For a first offense on an individual, I would think it highly unlikely that the fine would go that high. But the state provides the city with the ability to enact fines of that nature, of that quantity, and utilizing that gives the judge the discretion to apply the appropriate fine to the circumstance presented.
Okay, thank you. This idea that we're infringing on people's rights when you look at these small businesses, especially restaurants that are looking to get people into their restaurants to eat and partake, and then you read about a restaurant that has to close for 3 days because people weren't wearing a mask, and they find out that people who have been at their establishment have gotten the virus. So to me, it would be easier to follow the law that we put in place. And as Alderman Cleaver says, no shirt, no shoes, no mask, no service. That should be simple. That's been around forever. No shoes, no shirt, no service. So I don't think that we're infringing on people's rights or HIPAA. If a manager knows that a certain person that goes into their particular store does not wear a mask and he can prove that for medical reasons, then that shouldn't be an issue. And if someone went up to him and asked, he can tell them, well, the customer can either believe him or not. But I think that if we as aldermen see a store or a business that is not complying with the law and is letting people come in without a mask, then we should be notifying the health department and or the police department and let them go down and give them an educational point of view. Because when I went online the other day, all these big stores, Walmart especially, Bed Bath & Beyond, BJ, Sam's Club, you can't go into their store without a mask. And they don't have someone standing right at the door, but they have signs. But if someone sees you, they'll tell you you can't come in. So I think that our local downtown businesses would take that on and not feel that it's a burden and that they should not have to do this. So, and I saw that some of the changes that we put in, like hairdressing salons and tattoo parlors, you can take the mask off it while you're having a particular service. I don't think that should be an issue. We're not making this insane. We're just making it a little bit tighter so that the police have a little bit more handle on how to handle this. And I don't think, as I spoke to Chief Kerrigan, they're not out there looking for people without a mask. They're looking to educate people who are not wearing a mask. So if there is no more questions or comment, I will.
May I just?
Alderman Lewis.
Alderman Lou?
Yeah, just a couple quick points.
Sure.
I felt a little anxious before because of my, I just want to point out that I've spoken with the police department and they have said they have not had any citations. And it seems to me, I saw a report on the number of calls, and I noticed that most of the calls were for enforcement of people, without masks. Customers asking for enforcement of other customers. And so it just leads me to feel that if we could just get these store owners to be more responsible. There's just two other things. I feel that we would do ourselves a favor if, when we talk about this, I feel it's important to point out that this is our health department, our local, very illustrious health department that is recommending this. And I feel as though there's nothing good that can come from trying to cite CDC studies, because we know our health department knows those and follows them, and they build their protocol on those, reliable studies. I just feel that when you start pulling out different studies, they're so easy to, then your argument, then everyone's pulling out a study that who has time to go in and review the validity of different studies. Our our health department is a strong enough authority for us to depend on, I feel, for this. And lastly, a question for Corporation Counsel, just as far as reporting these and asking for enforcement, something that I had wondered, the only concern I want full disclosure, would that require, would that become something that if someone said, who reported me? Would the officer have to say, well, Alderman Lou reported you?
Very often reports,
Right to know requests or what?
very often reports come in anonymously on things like this. People call up and they don't even give their name. If they give their name but ask that it not be used or not disclosed to a alleged perpetrator, usually the police will try and honor that, in my opinion. That question might be better addressed to the chief or deputy or one of the officers. But my belief is they would try and honor a request for confidentiality in that regard. If someone has to go to court and testify, obviously their name is going to become known. If you don't give your name, they don't know it. So that's about all I can tell you.
Thank you.
I have a
Thank
question.
you. Alderman Lopez
who's-
and then Alderman Clemens.
Just for Attorney Bolton, so to clarify, if everybody in Nashua was reporting a mask that was not being worn in public, said their name was, for example, Ben Clemens, then that would just be what was written down there?
If you call up and give a name, I think they probably write down the name you give.
Ben Clemens is easy to remember. Just putting it out there.
Alderman Clemens.
Thank you. I would never report anybody for this. My question is, let's say, well, this is my real question is this. If we were to amend this ordinance so that it had, let's say, like a fine that was a set amount, I don't know, $50, $100, whatever the committee wanted to make it, would it eliminate the step of this going to court? So in other words, if we set a fine that said the fine for this is $50 and you have two options, you can pay the $50 or you can go to court and fight it, versus right now, it has to go to court. Is that correct?
It would go to court. Now, someone could plead guilty, and you would not necessarily have to have a trial if someone pled guilty. I don't think we're authorized to institute a plea by mail system for housing code violations and building code violations. We do have an administrative fine procedure where someone can pay the fine and not go to court. But for general public health ordinances, that's not, I do not believe we have the authority to have the administrative fine system.
Okay, so there's no way to get around the because that's my other concern is that if somebody was to be cited on this, it's an awful lot of expense. In my opinion, you have to have the officer come to court, you have the people there, they're fighting this. Now, I understand that this hasn't happened yet. Thankfully, it's been summer, we've been lucky to have compliance, or the police have been lenient, whatever the case may be. I'm just hoping that we're not bogging down the court system with fines and these types of cases going forward. I guess it's a shame that we can't have a better way to eliminate that. And again, it's just another reason I'm voting no. So thank you. I support I should say, I support in general. If we were able to lower this fine, if we were able to get the administrative part of it out of, in other words, a person could just, the cop comes in, yep, you're not wearing a mask, whatever, here's your $50 ticket, you got to pay it, whatever, never sees the light of day of court. That's something that I could potentially get behind, but I can't, it's not worth the cost to me. It's a hassle, and you have most people that aren't wearing a mask are probably going to have a pretty good legitimate reason as to the reason why they're not. And I just think this is going to cause more headaches than it's worth. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
Alderman Lopez has his hand up.
Alderman Lopez and Alderman Clee have their hands up.
Okay, go do what you have to. Okay, Alderman Lopez and then Alderman Clee.
So I just wanted to point out that with regards to the ordinance expense, citing the most expensive possible scenario, funerals are more expensive, and avoiding them is even more expensive than that once you catch COVID-19. And there's a tremendous amount of work that's going in on the healthcare side that I think we should probably be respectful of, not to mention among educators who are basically rewriting how they teach and how they educate, and students who are going through all kinds of difficulties trying to learn from a computer because we're trying to control an outbreak. So I think the quicker we get through this and the less grandparents we have to bury and outbreaks have to cripple economies, the better. And I think this is a good medium. Wearing a mask, a overwhelmingly expensive prospect. It's the cheapest possible mechanism. And if you can't wear a mask for medical reasons, you should be getting medical treatment that confirms those reasons.
Thank you. Alderman Clee?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to make clarification, make sure that I'm understanding this right. And I believe that I am. Attorney Bolton, you don't foresee that at any point if someone were to either accidentally or even purposefully not have masks, that they would be cited immediately. Do you agree that there would probably be an education process of our police trying to speak to them and explain that this is the way it's supposed to be? So a first-time offense, or I don't know how to say that properly, but they're not going to be basically given a summons that they have to go to jail and then get a $1,000 fine. Is that correct? There'll be an education process.
That would be my expectation, that our police officers are going to be reasonable in their enforcement. If someone's sitting in a restaurant and eating their dinner and has their mask off, as is allowed, and for whatever reason they get up and visit the restroom or briefly go out to their car to retrieve something, momentarily forgetting to redon the mask, I don't think the police are going to jump out from all directions and arrest the person as part of some sting operation or something. I expect if someone's in a grocery store, is told to put on a mask or leave, I expect 99 times out of 100 they'll leave. If the police are called to the scene, they will try and encourage the person to leave or put on a mask. It's only in cases where people are really recalcitrant that I would expect there to be an arrest or summons issued. I do not expect the police department to go at this hammer and tongs in a belligerent manner. That's just not my expectation and not my experience with our police department.
Madam Chair, may I just continue for a moment?
Yes.
Thank you. And I absolutely agree with you. It was kind of a question. I just wanted to get out there for the public to hear that. And I can tell you that when I did speak to Chief Carrigan, yes, he indicated that we've never cited anybody, but that they talk and they do education. I believe that with this ordinance and with the original ordinance, if someone was belligerently, they won't, then I do think that steps would be taken to whatever those would be. And I think that's the way things would work. And I don't believe that, like I said, the first offense, anybody would get $1,000 fine or even a $10 fine. I truthfully, or cited to go to court. I think it would have to be something that they would wantonly and knowingly done. And I know that my husband will kill me at this point, but we've all probably done it at one point. The other day, I walked into a store and he came in behind me and I looked at him and went, mask. And he was like, oh, right. And he ran out and got his mask. No one is going to pull him, cite him, and give him $1,000 fine. It was an honest mistake. And I've done it before. I've walked right up to the grocery store and realized I had to go all the way back to the car to get my mask. I try to almost put it on when I come in the car and hang it off my neck so I don't do that. But I don't believe that would happen to anybody. And I just wanted to make that statement. Thank you.
I don't
Okay.
see
Anyone?
any hands, Madam
I'm
Chair.
sorry, Alderman Kelly, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I was saying I don't see any other hands.
Okay, thank you. So if there is no other comments or concerns, would you please read the motion for the ordinance?
Sure,
I'm
happy
sorry,
to reread them.
can you actually hear me?
I can't hear whoever's trying to speak.
Yeah,
Is that-
so I raised my hand a while back. My name is Andy Cooper. You might have heard of me.
I'm sorry.
The public,
I'm
this
sorry.
is not public comment.
Excuse me.
This is not public comment.
Comments. We're not doing public comment. I'm sorry.
What my question was, that's fine. I was asking if there was going to be public comment.
We already had public comment at the beginning of the meeting.
I see. I was unable to hear that, unfortunately.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Well, it's a little disturbing, but I will let you go.
Thank you. Okay. Alderwoman Kelly, when you do the motion, you have to do it to include the amendment. We're voting on the amendment to the motion first.
So the way it's written and what I read earlier, Madam Chair, was motion. I move to recommend as amended by roll call. Is that enough, or do we need to? Because it was never brought forward, right?
Yeah.
So we have to amend it.
Let me suggest that what you want to do is amend proposed ordinance 20-029 by adding a new section 17 to read the exception to the face covering requirement for health reasons contained in section 7 of O-20-018 shall require a person to have in his or her immediate possession a written document executed by a medical doctor, registered nurse practitioner, or physician's assistant authorized to prescribe medication, which document certifies that the practitioner has warned the individual that he or she should not wear a face covering because it would pose a risk to his or her health.
So the motion would
Okay.
be to amend as just outlined by Attorney Bolton.
Right. Okay. So would you please call the roll?
Alderman Karen.
Yes.
Alderman Clemens.
No.
Alderman Lopez. You're muted.
Yes.
Alderman Cleaver.
Yes.
You have 4 yeas and 1 nay.
Okay. So now we're voting on final passage.
Yeah, I would make a motion to recommend final passage as amended by roll call. Alderman
Okay.
Karen,
Yes.
Alderman Clemmons,
No.
Alderman Lopez,
Yes.
Alderman Kelly is a yes. Alderman Cleaver,
Yes.
you have 4 yeas, 1 nay.
Okay, so motion carries for ordinance O-20-029. Okay. All those ordinances that are tabled in committee will stay there. So,
Madam Chairman,
yeah, Alderman Clemmons.
I was going to suggest that we take 02008 off the table to recommend indefinite postponement
Okay,
because
all
it's
right.
no longer necessary, and we should just clear it off the docket.
Okay, that's fine. So Alderman Clemmons making a motion to take 0-20-008 off the table. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Karen,
Yes.
Alderman Clemmons,
Yes.
Alderman Lopez,
Yes.
I vote yes. Alderman Cleaver,
Yes.
and 5 yeas.
Okay.
I would move to recommend indefinite postponement of 02008.
Okay, you heard the motion for indefinite postponement. Do we have any questions or comments?
Just a comment for the public.
Alderman Lopez.
This is just the overnight time extension from, I think Alderman Clemmons and I made a not successful stab at extending the hours to which restaurants could serve to 2, and that wasn't well received. So we don't need to extend the parking to go along with that because we didn't extend that time frame. Alderman Clemmons, is that about right?
That's absolutely correct. And as I promised one of the co-sponsors, Alderman Klee, I said that if the other ordinance didn't pass, that I would move for indefinite postponement of this. And so I am following through on my promise to her.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Okay, will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Karen,
Yes.
Alderman Clemmons,
Yes.
Alderman Lopez,
Yes.
I vote yes. Alderman Cleaver,
Yes.
you have 5 yeas.
Okay,
You're
motion-
next.
Okay, thank you. Motion passed on O-20-008. So now we're down to general discussion. Any comments?
I don't see anybody.
Hello, can you hear me?
Who's this?
Hello?
Hello?
It's Lori Ortolano, and I'm asking if there's public comment at the end of this meeting.
After general discussion, it is on the agenda for public comment.
Okay, after general discussion?
Correct.
Because it's not on the agenda.
The one I'm looking at says it.
Oh, well, the one on the computer doesn't. Okay, it goes from general discussion to remarks by the alderman, so I'm trying to figure it out. Thank you. I'll wait until general discussion is done.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anyone with general discussion from the committee or anyone else?
I don't
Okay.
see any.
I'm sorry.
I was just clarifying that I don't see anybody.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Kelly. Okay, we'll do public comment. Do you see
Yes,
anyone?
can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, would you please state your name and address, please?
Yes, Lori Ortolano, 41 Berkeley Street. I just wanted to speak briefly and quickly to the new position being created to address right-to-know issues that's going to be addressed up at the legal office. I have a couple concerns about this, and I've been no stranger to the right-to-know issue. I really feel strongly that you have to do a great deal of training within your departments about right to know through the New Hampshire Municipal Association, and get the people who are closest to the information knowledgeable about what information is public and what information isn't. I'm really leery and not happy about a position up in legal to cover this, because it's been a nightmare for me going through legal, stepping 2 and 3 layers away from the department that has the information, trying to get information requests satisfied. It's not working. Now, in assessing, you had one individual whose PDF performance description form, job description, basically put them in charge of handling information requests for the public. And that woman was removed, and nobody else held that job. Then another individual came in and took the job, and that woman has quit. Right now, you have nobody in assessing who's covering by performance job, description forms, by the PDFs, who is knowledgeable on fulfilling right to know requests, or that I am aware who is trained through the NHMA. And that leaves a huge hole, and that job isn't even posted. So that really concerns me. And I can tell you with my right to knows, I had the ability at one point in time, from when I started into September of 2018 until June 1st of 2019, I was getting information strictly working through the assessing office without incident. If you look through all the minutes and records, there were no complaints from anyone publicly on record of all the chaos I was causing, because the individual down there who was in charge of handling right to know requests was doing her job and handling it. And if I had questions, she answered them. And if she didn't understand something I had, she called and asked for clarification. And it worked really easy. But then once you changed and got rid of the chief and you put somebody in charge who wasn't as qualified, it became a nightmare. And the person who was able to handle the information was told they could no longer do that. They were not allowed to address right to know issues with the public. And there was nobody left down there. The other area for me, I was able to go over to the finance area. Rosemary Evans over there. There were probably only 4 times I interfaced with her. But if I went into finance and asked Rosemary a quick question about an invoice paid, that woman could give me an answer in 5 minutes. I was trying to get information through legal on whether tablets had been purchased and paid for. I wrote 3 right to knows. They were all numbered different right to knows to go in my pile of 300. They were not responded to. I was frustrated as heck. I wrote to Steve Bolton and said, why is this happening? Well, it was because when I saw Rosemary Evans in the hallway and City Hall was open, she said to me, I can't talk to you anymore. You have to go to legal. And what happened is any avenue that I had available to me to get the information from the source that had the information was slammed shut, and it was thrown up into legal. I am really concerned that it's going to be a total roadblock for the public. I really feel strongly that you want your department to be able to handle right to know requests and be trained. DPW, Lisa Photo. I viewed her as a very competent person, but the city doesn't believe she can handle a right to know request. And it got thrown up to legal, and they're in charge. And I don't understand that. I just don't understand it. It's been a nightmare. I have to write right to knows 3, 4, 5 times. And I send right to knows to legal that I get responses back from Celia Leonard that the information doesn't exist. I backdoor and have a number of them down into assessing where I basically demand the information and I get it. But that shouldn't be happening. And there are email chains for these right to knows that I can go 14, 15 letters deep between legal and myself before I finally get the information. Not because I wrote them inappropriately, but because they kept saying it didn't exist when I knew it did. So I'm really concerned about a legal position. And just to end it, I was so offended by Ben's comment that when he said that I hope $99,000 is enough money for all the grief or what they're going to have to put up with. We have to change the culture in City Hall. You have to treat the public who comes out to get information not like we're barbarians at the gate and enemies of the city. It's public information.
My right to know to access finance information is one of the most basic fundamental right to knows that a citizen would request. And I had to work my butt off to get it. I'm so deeply offended by that comment. I appreciate what Attorney Bolton said. I think he understood that the public is asking for more information and you have an obligation to provide it. It's 2020 in a digital age. And I feel strongly about open access. And I know most of you do not care for the work I did or the type of research I did or what my quest was or what I believed in was wrong in the assessing office. I know I don't have the backing of this board, but I fundamentally believe things were wrong. And the information I got gave me the information I needed. I know you don't recognize it. I know you feel there really weren't those problems, but it's what I requested. And regarding cost, I want to speak to Ben Clemens on this. He made a big deal about the $8,000 I spent hiring a PI to follow an assessor. How horrible it is that a citizen would lay down money like that and attack an innocent city worker and smear their reputation. I've had to work my tail off on these right to know issues. I'm $100 grand into it, and I know it's a $200,000 experience for me to legally challenge these right to knows. And I'm so strongly opposed that the only people who can challenge their city for information are people who have some wealth or means. I've had more people come to me, show me right to knows that are not fulfilled, and want help or wish they could do something legally, and they don't have the means. And getting information should be for the wealthy.
Mrs. Ortolano, you've had 5 minutes.
I'm done.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Juicy, Alderwoman Kelly.
I was wondering if that gentleman who wanted to speak before was still on, but I don't see him.
Okay.
I'd like to speak.
Who's this?
Beth Scaer.
Oh, Beth. Yeah. Please give your name and address, Beth.
Yep, Beth Scaer, 111 East Hobart Street. I just wanted to say, I listened to the discussion about the mask ordinance update, and I'm more confused than ever. If this is like shirt and shoes, requiring shirt and shoes, I assume there's no fine for employees that serve people without shirt or shoes. There is a huge penalty for employees that serve alcohol to minors. Are we saying that requiring masks should be treated like serving alcohol to minors, or should we say, or is this trying to be more like shirt and shoes? I mean, this discussion has been all over the place, and it's really frustrating to think that some teen grocery worker who sells something to somebody without a mask could be under the gun for a huge penalty. Thank you.
Okay.
Is there anyone else?
Anyone else? Okay. All right. Remarks from Alderman. Anyone?
Alderman Clemens.
Alderman Clemens.
Yes, thank you. I would just like to respond to to what was said. I have no idea why Miss Ortolano thinks that I was talking directly to her or to anybody in the public. It's just that job is going to be a very stressful job, and I'm very happy that we're going to have somebody here to do it, to take care of all of the needs that she has. And I mean, if she spent $100,000 of her own money, it would seem to me that having a position like this would save her an awful lot of money. So not really sure where her comments at me are coming from, but I certainly meant no ill intent to her at all. And, perhaps she should reflect inward if she felt that my comments were, somehow disrespectful, because they certainly had nothing to do with her. In fact, I try to avoid Miss Ortolano for the most part, I've learned my lesson. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. There is no need for
I have my
non-public.
hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Alderman Lopez.
Yeah, I just wanted to say we had a pretty good meeting for the most part, and I am excited to see all the new volunteers that are going to be working on the city's master plan. I cannot understate how important that is moving forward. We've had a lot of zoning issues that have been created just by not having an updated master plan. So that's very, very exciting. We don't have a Ward 4 designee yet, so we have to work on that a little bit. But we have people in mind. So I was excited about that. And I do have a lot of enthusiasm for the position that we're creating with regards to right to know, especially because it offers the opportunity to help volunteer commission leaders and committee leaders understand their role, understand the resources available to them. When I first started on the Cultural Connections Committee, it was a little bit overwhelming trying to figure out exactly how much I had to do. But once I figured out, okay, this person takes notes, they give it to the city clerk makes sure they're up. Like it was much easier and simpler for me to focus on what I was trying to do as a volunteer. So I think that's going to be a good position. And I think the legal department is the perfect department to do it, to be honest, because it's sort of like troubleshooting before you get into trouble.
Okay, thank you. Did I miss anyone else? Okay. Alderwoman Kelly.
Am I moving to adjourn? Sorry, I lost my.
Yes. Yep.
Move to adjourn.
Okay. Motion to adjourn has been made by Alderman Kelly. Can we have a roll call, please?
We sure can. Alderman Karen.
Yes.
Alderman Clemens.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes, definitely.
I am a yes. Alderman Cleaver.
Yes.
Okay, 5 yeas and 0 nays. Good night, everyone.
Okay. All right. Motion. Oh,
Good night.
motion carried. The meeting is closed at 10:26. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.